Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Ma'am, was this your verdict in the jury room? Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Ma'am, was this your verdict in the jury room? Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Sir, was this your verdict in the jury room? Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Sir, was this your verdict in the jury room? Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Sir, was this your verdict in the jury room? Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Sir, was this your verdict in the jury room? Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Sir, was this your verdict in the jury room? Was this verdict agreed to by you? Is this now your verdict? Thank you. Anything else from the state with regard to polling the jury?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Cruz, anything else with regard to polling the jury, sir? No, all right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your service to this county, Clark County. It has been a long month. You have been very patient. You have always been here on time. I'm going to release all of you from any further attendance in this case. With the thanks of the court, you are all going to be free to go in just a moment. The bailiff will lead you to the front door as usual. You will be escorted to the elevator and escorted to the parking deck to your cars. With the thanks of the court, you are all free to go. Thank you. Everyone keep their place, please.
We are just watching live now inside of Clark County Superior Court, where the jury has just rendered its verdict in the murder trial of Edric Faust, who was accused of killing Tara Baker, the UGA law student, more than 20 years ago. It was a case that had gone cold. New evidence became available. Prosecutors charged Edric Faust with the murder of Tara Baker, and just moments ago, the jury delivered its verdict convicting Edric Faust of murder and a slew of other charges. This all unfolding inside of a Clark County Superior Courtroom moments ago. We've been listening in live alongside of you as the jury delivered its verdict. We're going to read it to you here again. Faust faced 12 charges. I'm going to read each of the charges, and I'm going to read for you the jury's verdict on each of them. Count 1, malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty. Count 3, felony murder, guilty. Count 4, felony murder, guilty. Count 5, felony murder, guilty. Count 6, burglary, guilty. Count 7, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 8, rape, guilty. Count 9, aggravated assault, guilty. Count 10, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 11, arson in the first degree, guilty. Count 12, possession of a knife during commission of a felony, guilty. The jury convicting on all 12 counts that Faust faced. Faust had pleaded not guilty. The trial took a number of days inside of that Clark County Superior Courtroom. The jury took a number of hours to reach this verdict. The state and the defense rested their cases late on Friday evening. The judge charged the jury, which means the judge sent the case to the jury with specific instructions. The jury took those instructions, began deliberating yesterday on Monday. They deliberated all day yesterday, did not reach a verdict yesterday, deliberated well through the morning and through the lunch hour today here on Tuesday, February 17th. And just shy of 1:30 p.m., which is where we find ourselves right now, the jury reached its verdict convicting Edric Faust on all counts in the murder trial. Edric Faust, now a convicted murderer. Moments ago, the jury rendering that verdict. You see a live image inside the Clark County Superior Courtroom right now. That is Faust in the striped shirt. The camera is just panned over here. We're now looking up at the judge here, Judge Lisa Lott. But Faust in that striped shirt, as the jury was reading its verdict, the jury foreperson read aloud the verdict, and Faust remained fairly motionless as the verdict came in, maintaining essentially the same sort of posture that you just saw him there as he listened to that jury convict him, again, on all 12 counts in this case that had gone cold. Tara Baker was a 23-year-old University of Georgia law student. She was found dead in 2001, and the case took decades to finally make its way inside of a courtroom. Today, that jury rendering its verdict convicting Edric Faust, who you now see right now being shackled, it appears, by it was likely a Clark County Sheriff's deputy here. We're watching this together in real time. Edric Faust, again, just convicted on all 12 counts, including a malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, and a litany of other serious charges. That jury delivering its verdict moments ago here. You're looking at Edric Faust right now, who appears to be talking with a member of his defense team there. You see Faust in the striped shirt, listening or speaking to, it's hard to say, you can't see their faces, but speaking with somebody on his defense team, sitting with him at the defense table there as they process the jury's verdict. Again, convicting Faust of 12 serious charges, including murder. Reams, her producer, I don't know if we can hear anything from inside the courtroom right now. Okay. That's good to know. If you're watching along, know that if the audio comes back up from inside the courtroom, we're going to take you there. Right now, there is no audio from inside the courtroom. The jury has just been dismissed. We're going to stay with you here and monitor as this situation continues to unfold inside of the courtroom. Yeah, if we have that, Reams. Okay, if you're just joining us here, we're going to rewind the clock just a bit and play for you the moment that the jury handed down its verdict. You're going to hear the voice of the jury foreperson who out loud delivered the jury's unanimous verdict in the trial of Edric Faust, who was accused of killing UGA law student Tara Baker back in 2001.
But I'm instructing all of you again that this is a court of law and everyone is to remain calm. Thank you. You may bring the jury out.
Okay, and we're going to cut out of that right now because there is some new motion inside the courtroom. This is live inside Clark County Superior Court moments after Edric Faust was found guilty.
Time for this court, but I'll hear from both sides to see what their schedule is.
May I have just a moment?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And then, Mr. Cruz, I'll ask you. Let me just wait to hear from them,
I can
and
talk.
then we'll go to you.
All right. And we are watching in right now. There's some conversation happening between the attorneys here, the state and the defense attorney, and the judge about sentencing and sentencing scheduling.
Counsel and Mr. Faust, Thursday at 3 o'clock. Mr. Faust, you are in custody. Court is adjourned.
Court is adjourned. That is the word from the Clark County Superior Court judge on the bench there as the trial of Edric Faust has now reached its conclusion. Again, if you were just joining us, a jury just read its verdict in the murder trial of Edric Faust. Faust accused of killing Tara Baker, the 23-year-old University of Georgia law student, all the way back in 2001. She was a first-year law student in 2001. She was found dead. The case went cold for many years. Eventually, new evidence emerged. Prosecutors charged Faust with Tara Baker's murder. And moments ago, as we just listened in live right alongside of you, that jury delivered its verdict unanimously, finding Faust guilty on all of the charges he had faced, all 12 of them. I'm going to read you all 12 of them once again. Faust faced the following charges: malice murder, felony murder, felony murder, felony murder, felony murder, burglary, aggravated sodomy, rape, aggravated assault, aggravated sodomy, arson in the first degree, and possession of a knife during commission of a felony. The jury unanimously voted to convict on all counts. I'm looking at my notes here now as we're getting new information in as we speak here. Sentencing, we're now learning here, sentencing will come quickly. The Superior Court judge in this case has scheduled sentencing for this Thursday. This Thursday, guys?
Yes.
This Thursday, so just a few days away, 2 days from now, Superior Court judge in Clark County has scheduled sentencing for this Thursday at 3 p.m. for Edric Faust, who, again, just moments ago, was convicted by a Clark County jury of a dozen serious charges, including malice murder, in the case of the killing of Tara Baker, that UGA law student who was found dead in 2001. We're now getting, this is just crossing our desk right now, we're now getting a statement from Tara Baker's family. Again, Tara Baker, the woman, 23 years old, who was killed back in 2001, and who just moments ago, Edric Faust, was convicted of killing. You're looking at a picture of Tara Baker on your screen right now. This is the family of Tara Baker delivering this statement. I'm going to read it to you in full here. Quote, "Today a jury found Edric Lamont Faust guilty in the murder of our precious daughter and sister, Tara Louise Baker. Tara was 23 years old and just 1 day away from turning 24 when her life was taken. She was a first-year law student at the University of Georgia. She chose the study of law because she believed deeply in fairness, accountability, and the responsibility of the legal system to seek truth. Justice was not abstract to her, it was a calling. For more than 2 decades, we have lived with the absence of the life she was building. We have imagined the attorney she would have become, the causes she would have championed, and the people she would have helped. That future was taken from her in an act of violence that forever altered our family. Today's verdict does not restore Tara's future. It does not erase the years of grief, but it does represent accountability through the legal system she believed in so strongly." The family statement continues, saying, quote, "We are grateful to the jurors who carefully examined the evidence and fulfilled their duty with seriousness and integrity. We are grateful to the investigators and prosecutors who continued to pursue this case across decades. We are especially thankful for the work of the Western Judicial Circuit's District Attorney's Office for their commitment to seeing this case resolved. We also want to thank the many friends, advocates, supporters, and community members who stood beside us and helped ensure Tara's life and story were never forgotten. Throughout this process, we have trusted the legal system to follow the evidence wherever it led. Today, that process has resulted in a verdict. Tara believed justice required courage and patience. In this moment, that principle has been honored. We also know that through the Coleman-Baker Act, named in her honor, families will continue to get justice that has been delayed for far too long." Her family statement concludes with this, saying, quote, "Her life mattered, her pursuit of justice mattered, and both continue to matter. We are grateful for this resolution after more than 25 years of searching for the truth." Again, if you're just joining us, those are the words of the family of Tara Baker, the woman who was killed in 2001, a 23-year-old UGA law student in her first year of law school, killed in 2001. And moments ago, Edric Faust was convicted of her murder. The jury taking about a day and a half to deliberate this case, taking about a day and a half to weigh the evidence, weigh the testimony that they saw from witnesses on the stand, investigators, technical experts who all offered their testimony. And the jury today, at just about 1:20 this afternoon, so about 20 minutes ago now, delivered their verdict, convicting Faust of all 12 of the counts that he was charged with. That includes a malice murder charge, 4 felony murder charges, and a number of other serious felonies. Faust convicted on all of them. If you were listening along with us, you heard the voice of the jury foreperson deliver the results of the jury's deliberations there. You're looking on your screen right now, once again, at the statement of Tara Baker's family, just delivered following the verdict here in the last few minutes. And it's worth reading here again as we continue to monitor all of the information that's coming in. But I want to read this along with you once again. This is the words of the family of Tara Baker, whose life and whose death was at the center of this case. This is the words of Tara Baker's family. They say, quote, "Today a jury found Edric Lamont Faust guilty in the murder of our precious daughter and sister, Tara Louise Baker. Tara was 23 years old and just one day away from turning 24 when her life was taken. She was a first-year law student at the University of Georgia. She chose the study of law because she believed deeply in fairness, accountability, and the responsibility of the legal system to seek truth. Justice was not abstract to her, it was a calling. Her life mattered, her pursuit of justice mattered, and both continue to matter. We are grateful for this resolution after more than 25 years of searching for the truth." The statement continues, and we'll read more of that in a moment. I want to pause here and bring this information to you as well. The jury, again, delivering their verdict moments ago, and sentencing is going to happen quickly. We heard from the judge in this case from the bench after she thanked the jury for their service throughout this trial and dismissed the jury. The judge then informed the state, to the prosecutors, and the defense attorneys for Edric Faust that sentencing going to take place Thursday at 3 o'clock. So you watched as Edric Faust sat fairly motionlessly, listening to the jury render its verdict. He spoke with one of his defense attorneys for a time after the verdict was reached. He will be remanded into the custody of the state, and he will return to a courtroom on Thursday for his sentencing. At that sentencing as well, we don't know this for a fact, but it is common to hear victim impact statements. We may well hear from Tara Baker's family and loved ones sharing their personal stories of how Tara Baker's killing impacted their lives. And you can expect to hear some of what was relayed through the family statement moments ago, that Tara Baker's life was cut short at the prime of her life as she was embarking on a career in the law. She was somebody who loved the legal system, wanted to pursue justice, and that chance was taken away from her. And the jury today has rendered its verdict saying Edric Faust was the one who took that away from her. Our Molly Oak was in the courtroom as this verdict was rendered. She's there now. We're going to join her when she is available. Molly delivering us this information, again, as this is developing quickly here. She's relaying these messages through some email here that I'm looking at on my desk. Again, we're watching this in real time here. DNA, Molly informs us, was one of the key pieces of evidence. And we've seen that play out over the days that we've been following this trial. DNA evidence, new DNA evidence that came forward, played a key role in breaking this case open that had gone cold for years as new developments in the technology and the testing came online. New pieces of evidence were developed by investigators who pursued this case doggedly for more than 2 decades. That DNA evidence played a key role in the state's presentation of their case before the jury, and we can presume from the jury's unanimous verdict here that that DNA evidence also played a role in convincing all of those jurors that Edric Faust was indeed guilty of the crimes he was accused of. It's 1:44, almost 1:45 in the afternoon right now. It's been about half an hour since we listened in as the jury rendered its verdict in the murder trial of Edric Faust, accused of and now convicted of killing 23-year-old Tara Baker. We have the moment that jury rendered its verdict available right now. If you're just joining us, we're going to play this moment from inside the Clark County Superior Courthouse once again.
The jury finds the defendant on the following counts. Count 1, malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty. Count 3, felony murder, guilty. Count 4, felony murder, guilty. Count 5, felony murder, guilty. Count 6, burglary, guilty. Count 7, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 8, rape, guilty. Count 9, aggravated assault, guilty. Count 10, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 11, arson in the first degree, guilty. Count 12, possession of a knife during commission of a felony, guilty.
All right, Madam Foreperson, if you would present that verdict to our to our bailiff. Mr. Terrell, if you'll bring it up to the bench.
You were just listening in to the voice of the jury foreperson delivering the verdict that all of the jury unanimously agreed upon, that Edric Faust was guilty of all 12 of the counts that he faced, including murder. The jury convicting Edric Faust of killing Tara Baker all the way back in 2001, this case that, again, had gone cold for decades. Prosecutors developed and investigators developed new leads, new information. DNA testing played a key role in that. DNA testing and its results played a key role in the state's case that was presented before this jury. And the jury today, after more than a day, really a day and a half of deliberations, rendering its verdict convicting Edric Faust of the murder of Tara Baker. The Baker family releasing this statement just moments ago after the verdict was rendered. We're going to read it together again if you are just joining us. This is the statement. These are the words of the Baker family saying, quote, "Today a jury found Edric Lamont Faust guilty in the murder of our precious daughter and sister, Tara Louise Baker. Tara was 23 years old and just one day away from turning 24 when her life was taken. She was a first-year law student at the University of Georgia. She chose the study of law because she believed deeply in fairness, accountability, and the responsibility of the legal system to seek truth. Justice was not abstract to her. It was a calling." That statement from the family went on to say and went on to conclude with this final paragraph. Her life mattered, her pursuit of justice mattered, and both continue to matter. We are grateful for this resolution after more than 25 years of searching for the truth. Those are the words of the Baker family, the family of Tara Baker, killed in 2001. She was 23 years old, a day shy of her 24th birthday, at the start of a legal career, a first-year law student at University of Georgia's Law School. And today a jury decided and determined, after reviewing the evidence, that Edric Faust was responsible for killing her. Sentencing is going to come quickly. We just saw after the jury was dismissed following their rendering of the verdict that the judge in this case scheduled sentencing for 3 p.m. on Thursday, so almost exactly 48 hours from now. Edric Faust, who was remanded back into the custody of the state following the guilty verdict that was delivered by that jury, Faust will be back in a courtroom for sentencing before the judge here. You can expect, although it's not a guarantee, it is common for loved ones, family members, friends of the victim to share their perspective on the impact of the crime, the toll it took on them and on their family, and their views on what kind of sentence they would like to see handed down. Those recommendations and personal stories and often just gut-wrenching memories are shared in the form of witness statements and victim impact statements. Those may be on their way this Thursday at 3 p.m. Again, our Molly Oak, she is inside the courtroom. She's relaying information to us now. We'll hear from Molly Oak in short order. We're going to continue to follow all that is transpiring in real time inside the Clark County Superior Courthouse following this guilty verdict of Edric Faust. And we understand that our Molly Oak is working to connect with and talk with the attorneys in this case, both the defense and the state. When she is free, we're going to bring you to her, and we're going to talk with Molly. In the meantime, and noting that we are going to continue again to follow what the fallout of this Edric Faust guilty verdict, we are going to turn now to another trial that we have been following right alongside of you all day and all week, just as we have been following the jury selection all of last week, and just as we have been following from the very first day that the Appalachia High School shooting happened, all the way back in 2024. This is the trial of Colin Gray. He is the father of the accused shooter, who was a student at Appalachia High School. Colin Gray also facing charges in connection to that shooting. He has pleaded not guilty, as has his son. Colin Gray is now on day 2 of the trial in Barrow County for him. Our Grace King has been inside the courtroom for every bit of it. Grace, what has stood out to you so far today in the testimony and the evidence that you have heard on day 2 of this trial?
Really just the emotion and impact of this tragedy on September 4th, 2024, and how it still affects the lives of all of these kids today. We've spent most of the day hearing from the 14, 15, 16-year-olds who were inside Miss Ryan's classroom that day. That's where they say Colt opened fire, shooting multiple classmates inside. They saw, some of their classmates die. They saw some of their classmates get shot. They watched all of that unfold, and a lot of times in these trials, they stick just to the facts. You don't hear a lot of the emotional impact until those victim impact statements. But because a lot of these charges here are child cruelty and the impact on there, it's not only the physical toll, but also some of that emotional toll. So they've been talking about, just not being able to sleep at night because they wonder, was I supposed to die that day? Could I have died that day? Just replaying the trauma going back. Some of these kids say they haven't returned to school since. They tried, one of them for 3 months to walk back into Appalachia High School because he loved marching band and wanted to continue being part of it. And he couldn't do it. He never made it through a school day, and now he does school at home. We heard from kids who, were shot in the leg. They loved playing soccer or volleyball, and they can't run without pain in their nerves. So just kind of all of those long-term impacts today, and just the pure emotion and how they were responding to it. We heard from one student, I want to play some of the sound for you if we're able to, Natalie Griffith. She just talked about the anger she felt as she was dragged outside of school that day and what happened.
I saw red. I was very mad. I hadn't even processed it as a kid when I thought about who would do this. I was thinking maybe an angry parent, some kind of alumni that had a bad experience at the high school. Terrorist attacks, anything. I did not think another student that had no reason to be in my school with a gun. I said a lot of curse words, and I was very angry, especially at the time, because I thought that they were going to have to amputate my hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they take you outside.
And I remember yelling at him that we were kids. Because we were kids.
And those words are really just what you sticks with us. I kept yelling at him, we're just kids, because we were just kids. And a lot of this trauma will stick with them for the rest of their life. They were talking about just that emotional toll. A lot of them also said in the moment they didn't realize they were shot because they were just so stunned out of fear that it took looking down at them or having friends point out like, hey, you're bleeding here, because they were just paralyzed almost with fear and just not knowing what to do next.
Another day, Grace, of just really heart-wrenching testimony. We should note for folks who are watching, as we played the audio from that young woman, you only saw the podium, the witness stand there, as in accordance with the judge's order in this case, and out of respect for the young people and the young witnesses. Our camera in the courtroom is not showing those young folks' faces as they deliver this just gut-wrenching testimony. Grace, what all did the prosecution focus on today? Was it this heart-wrenching testimony? Did they get into any other fields that we suspect they may be bringing up before the jury, things like video evidence and forensics?
Some of it was a couple photos that GBI investigators took of the actual wounds and injuries just to kind of back up what these students were saying. They brought in a lot of the nurses who were treating these kids as they came to the hospitals just to kind of break down what their specific injuries were, what surgeries they had to have in that. But from my perspective, what it looks like is prosecutors are really just building out the crimes and establishing the facts of this case. So here is what happened. Let's have all these kids establish how we get to child cruelty, how we get to those involuntary manslaughter and second-degree murder charges. Let's just lay out the facts, and then they're going to kind of work backwards from there and say, okay, here's what Colin did or didn't do to try and get to the dad in this case instead of the kid. But really, they're just building out what they can to establish the facts of the crime, and then I think they're going to work backwards from there.
One last question for you here before we let you go, and we know you've got to get back inside the courtroom, so I'll be brief about this. But the gallery, we obviously we're not showing them. We can't see them from our vantage point of the pool camera. But beyond the press corps, who is inside of the courtroom listening in to this testimony that's being presented, obviously, to the jury? But there, I would suspect, is a full gallery of people listening in and watching, and I would imagine they have close ties to all of this as well.
A lot of the families of the victims, both those who were killed and wounded, are there. They're watching. It's hard for them to watch. It's hard for everyone to watch, but some of them were even talking to us during parts of it. One girl had videos of her surgery and was showing it around because she wants to she was like, look how cool this is and all of this horrible things. She thought seeing the video of her surgery was cool. So some of the parents were just sharing those stories with us. Like, I know these photos look gruesome, but she enjoyed looking back on some of this because she thinks the medical field is really interesting. Some of them are just really re-triggering, I think would be the best word. Every time we go to Appalachian High School, the kids there will tell us a helicopter sound, a police siren kind of just brings back all the trauma of that day. Of course, some of the body camera video we saw yesterday, you could hear the sirens, you could hear the helicopters. So, I mean, my heart breaks for all those kids just rehearing it and having all of those emotions come back for that day. But just a lot of family members, a lot of community members just there in support. We've seen the Barrow County Sheriff, Judge Smith. He testified yesterday, but he's been in and out of there in support. It's a tight-knit community, and they're all there to just kind of walk with each other in this hard time. But like you said, it's a full courtroom with a lot of heavy emotion.
Our Grace King, continuing to cover this very tough story with delicacy and respect for all those who were impacted. Grace, we know you got to get back into the courtroom. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you in a little bit. For those who continue to follow along here, and I suspect many of you will. If you're from Georgia, if you're from our part of the state and part of the country, you know that what happened at Appalachian High School shook and reshaped so much of our state. In the early days of the fall semester of 2024, to bring you up to speed here, two important things as we continue to follow along with this trial. Again, Colin Gray, this is day 2 of his trial. He's pleaded not guilty. He faces 29 counts, including 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter in a case that prosecutors allege he is responsible for providing his son access to the firearm used in the shooting. That's what the jury is going to have to render a verdict on eventually. If you want to follow along, we have a live stream available right now here on 11Alive Plus of everything unfolding inside that courtroom. If you're on 11Alive Plus right now, just click down in the menu and you'll see the continuous live player from inside the courthouse in Barrow County right now. We're going to go to a quick break as we get ready for the top of the hour. We'll be right back at 2 o'clock. And it is 2 o'clock right now on the East Coast. I'm Zach Merchant, the 11Alive Plus streaming center, and we are following breaking developments and a number of stories right off the top. And most urgently, just moments ago, about half an hour ago, a jury in a Clark County Superior Courtroom rendered its verdict in the murder trial of Edric Faust. The jury unanimously convicting Edric Faust for the murder of Tara Baker. Tara Baker, the 23-year-old UGA law student who was killed in 2001. It took decades to get that case before a jury. It had gone cold. It heated up as investigators developed new leads. Today, after more than a day of deliberating, a jury convicted Edric Faust in that murder. In another trial we continue to follow, it is now day 2 of Colin Gray's trial inside of a Barrow County courtroom. Colin Gray, the father of the accused Appalachia High School shooter, who faces charges himself in connection to that shooting. They both have pleaded not guilty. Colin Gray, the father, is the first to stand trial. Day 2 of his trial. We'll bring you inside that courtroom and follow along live as testimony and witnesses continue to be presented before the jury. The prosecution continue to make its case. And today we are remembering a civil rights icon, Jesse Jackson. Died today at 84 years old. We are looking back on his legacy across the country and right here in Atlanta, where he has deep ties through his many decades of work as a civil rights advocate and public figure with deep, deep, deep ties to Atlanta. We're going to turn here right now, though, to our meteorologist, Melissa Nord, with a look at our forecast today that has been... I get in trouble. I get in trouble when I say it's good, and then you guys always inform me, well, but today it is not bad.
Oh, it's good. Unless you have really, really bad pollen allergies.
See, that's what I'm talking about. There's always a... No, it's nice.
I think the glass is, what do you say, half full versus half empty?
Yeah, we're half full today.
I think we're more than
Can we get a new weather graphic for that? Maybe not.
We'll fill it up.
Yeah.
Here's weather on tap. Nice weather, spring-like weather on tap. We've got a lot more warming ahead this week. So today we're up close to 70 degrees, and then we'll be even in the mid-70s moving forward at the end of the week. So you need some little light jackets and sweaters in the morning, but you do not need them all day with how this forecast is trending for the next several afternoons. Look at this bright sky over Atlanta. We had blue skies all yesterday. Today, it's been a mix of clouds and sunshine, but there's been enough sun filtering through that we're warming those temperatures up equally, if not slightly warmer than yesterday afternoon. Currently 68 in Atlanta. Look at Rome, already up to 72 degrees, 67 in Athens, and 70 in Eatonton. So looking like a really nice afternoon out on Lake Oconee as well. Look at that, a warmth to our west, 72 in Dallas. The Amarillo, Texas, 76. So it's this big ridge in the jet stream is what we call it when the jet streams push far to the north that allows for these numbers to go more than 10 degrees above average. But as I alluded to earlier, it's not perfect for everybody. Today is the second day so far this month. We've reached high tree pollen levels. Now, it is not unusual in the month of February to see a couple of high pollen levels for the tree pollen. The season starts to kick up in February if we see warm temperatures, but generally we see the much higher numbers getting into 300, 500, then 1,000, then 2,000 as we get into the back half of March through the first half of April. That's the peak of pollen season. But today, 107, the pollen count from Atlanta Allergy and Asthma, that is measured each and every morning during the week, and then around the peak of pollen season measured 7 days a week. And those main contributors, elm, juniper, alder, maple, and oak trees. You can't see the hardwood pollens like you can pine tree pollen, but the hardwood pollens are what end up irritating people, and they often have a lot more adverse reactions to if you are a pollen and allergy sufferer out there. Okay, a lot more spring warmth coming. I'm calling it a taste of spring. Spring is not here officially. Meteorological spring doesn't start until March 1st, and astronomical spring doesn't start until that third week of March, around the 21st or so. Highs are going to be 60s and 70s. At the end of the week, though, I'm tracking a frontal boundary that'll come in here and bring us some higher rain chances. But in the meantime, we've already made it to our high of the day. We'll probably surpass that high by a few degrees, and considering it's only 2 o'clock, we got a couple more hours of warming to go. there we go. Got the numbers on the graphic here. Needed some caffeine to kick in for our graphic system. 68 today, 69 tomorrow, 76 on Thursday, and we'll cool things off at the end of the week. So, can you plant? The daffodils are blooming outside. Pollen counts are going up. It's not safe to plant tender blooms, though, quite yet. We are not done with frost and freeze season here in Atlanta. We average our last spring freeze March 21st. We have seen freezes as late in Atlanta as the end of April, although that was pre-Industrial Revolution and before all the development around the city of Atlanta. So we always say wait until tax day. If you're inside the city in the urban heat island effect, if you wait until April 1st, you're usually pretty good. We keep this warmth going. We're not done with warmth, or we're not going to see warmth indefinitely from here, though. Watch the temperature pattern coming in for the end of the weekend and start of next week. Another one of those dips in the jet stream that will send our highs back to the 40s and low 50s. So 60s and 70s this week, then 40s and 50s coming next week. Couple showers start coming into play on Thursday. Those higher rain chances arrive Friday, and then again on Saturday. You can see them here on the European model, bringing in some repeated rounds of rain. Some of it could be locally heavy. Even some thunderstorms possible with our temperatures as warm as they're going to be. Rainfall amounts will gradually, or rather widely vary. Some models pinpoint North Georgia, far North Georgia's higher rain amounts. Others pinpoint the metro area. Ballpark between now and the weekend, 1/2 inch to 1.5 inches. There could be a few spots that do get more than that. So we'll be watching those rain chances increasing as the temperatures stay unseasonably warm for this time of year. And I'll just kind of show you here that sunshine this afternoon. Then we have the clouds back tomorrow, but those rain chances will hold off until Thursday and mostly Friday and Saturday. So if you're trying to make outdoor plans, Sunday may be the better day to do so, but it's also the colder day to do so. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to these 70s.
That looks good. I'm looking forward to that as well. Glass half full, Melissa.
Indeed.
We like that. All right, Melissa Nord, we will check back in with you in just a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to turn now to day 2 of the ongoing trial of Colin Gray, the father of the accused shooter at Appalachia High School back in 2024. His son, Colt Gray, and the father, Colin Gray, both charged in connection to the shooting. Both have pleaded not guilty. Colin Gray, the father, is the first of the two to stand trial. He is inside of a Barrow County Superior Courthouse right now, where the prosecution continues to present its case to the jury. Let's listen in right now. And before we go, I want to remind you, we're listening to this live. Some of the testimony, some of the evidence may be tough to watch. With that warning, let's listen in. These things go inside of a courtroom. Just as we joined in, the jurors informed the judge that they wanted a break. Understandably, they've been listening to some pretty gut-wrenching testimony, if you listened to our Grace King's live report moments ago. So the jurors are now on a break. Court is on a recess. They may be, and I suspect they will be, as I'm looking at my notes here right now, I suspect they will be returning in some order. And our understanding is the court may go until about 3:30 this afternoon. We're going to bring you, Gabby. Okay. We're going to play you right now a piece of some of the exchange unfolding inside of this courtroom. This is from one of the state's witnesses delivering their testimony on the witness stand. Let's listen in.
Yes, seemingly twice.
Twice?
Yes.
Okay. So you've now noticed you've been shot, and I think you said you were screaming?
Yes.
What were you screaming?
I got shot. I'm a kid and I got shot.
What kind of things were you worried about?
My friend, Lorelai, she was only her class was only around the corner, and I was worried that her class had also gotten shot. And I was also worried that I was going to die and how that would affect my parents.
So you're just listening in to one of the students from Appalachia High School who was shot that day in 2024, the day of the Appalachia High School shooting. It took the lives of 4 people. 9 others were injured. You were listening from just earlier today, that testimony delivered by one of the students who was shot that day, who thankfully survived, but her life changed forever. Note, too, if you're watching us, if you're wondering why you only heard her voice, for 2 reasons. One, out of respect for the young men and women who will be witnesses in this case. At this point in the trial, we're not showing their faces. And out of respect for a judge's order, who has ordered our camera inside of the courtroom to do as much. So both out of respect for the judge's order and out of respect for the young men and women who have already gone through so much, we're not showing their faces at this point of the trial. It's been a day of courtrooms and a day of trials. As we continue to follow day 2 of the trial of Colin Gray in Barrow County, we have also, if you have been along with us for the last week or 2, we have been following the case of the killing of Tara Baker that has been unfolding inside of a Clark County Superior Courtroom. The state and the defense presented their cases over the course of last week. The state accusing Edric Faust of committing the murder, accusing Edric Faust of killing Tara Baker all the way back in 2001. The state and the defense rested their cases on Friday evening. The judge turned the case over to the jury. The jury spent all of yesterday deliberating, and they spent a good portion of today deliberating. Just after 1 o'clock, the jury informed the judge that they were ready to deliver their verdict. And just at about 1:15 this afternoon, the jury returned to the jury box, returned inside of that Clark County Superior Courtroom. Edric Faust, the defendant accused of murder and 11 other counts, sat at the defense table. The judge gave the floor over to the jury foreperson, and the foreperson read the verdict.
The jury finds the defendant on the following counts. Count 1, malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty. Count 3, felony murder, guilty. Count 4, felony murder, guilty. Count 5, felony murder, guilty. Count 6, burglary, guilty. Count 7, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 8, rape, guilty. Count 9, aggravated assault, guilty. Count 10, aggravated sodomy, guilty. Count 11, arson in the first degree, guilty. Count 12, possession of a knife during commission of a felony, guilty.
All right, Madam Foreperson, if you would present that verdict to our bailiff. Mr. Terrell, if you'll bring it up to the bench. May I see counsel at the bench for you all to review the form of the verdict. Thank you.
And if you were here on 11Alive Plus, we watched that verdict be delivered by the jury foreperson live right alongside of you just about an hour ago, around 1:15 this afternoon. You saw the video there from that moment. Edric Faust, the defendant in that striped shirt, remaining largely motionless at his seat at the defense table as he listened to the jury foreperson deliver the jury's verdict, convicting him on all 12 of the counts he was charged with, including murder, felony murder, and a number of other serious felonies. Sentencing scheduled by the judge in this case for 2 days from now, for Thursday afternoon. Shortly after that verdict was reached and delivered by the jury, the family of Tara Baker delivered this statement. We're going to read part of it to you right now. This again is these are the words of Tara Baker's family saying, quote, "Today a jury found Edric Lamont Faust guilty in the murder of our precious daughter and sister, Tara Louise Baker. Tara was 23 years old and just 1 day away from turning 24 when her life was taken. She was a first-year law student at the University of Georgia. She chose the study of law because she believed deeply in fairness, accountability, and the responsibility of the legal system to seek truth. Justice was not abstract to her. It was a calling. The family went on to say, her life mattered, her pursuit of justice mattered, and both continue to matter. We are grateful for this resolution after more than 25 years of searching for the truth. Those are the words of Tara Baker's family, delivered just moments after that Clark County jury read its verdict in a Clark County Superior Courtroom convicting Edric Faust in the murder of Tara Baker. We're going to go to break right now. We'll be right back in moments. Well, love them or hate them, taxes, you got to pay them. And you got to pay them pretty soon. Tax day is coming up, and you may have, if you are like just about anybody who's not an accountant, and I suspect a lot of accountants have some questions as well because the tax code is complicated. If you've got some questions, we're going to try to get you some answers here. We're joined right now live by Katie Stanton, who is a congressional reporter with Tax Notes. That's a D.C.-based, nonpartisan, nonprofit newsroom focused, as the name suggests, on tax policy. Katie, we are glad you are joining us right now, and I think a good place to start might be this. As we head towards tax day this season, what are the big themes emerging that you think regular folks have got to be paying attention to this year?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of tax changes from last year to this year because of this big federal tax law that passed last July called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, if you had heard about it. And the expectation is that on average, refunds are probably going to increase this year for a lot of people, though not necessarily for everyone. Some of those big changes to pay attention to are an increase in the standard deduction, an increase in the child tax credit, which is important for parents, a new tax deduction for seniors over 65 of up to $6,000, some new deductions for tips, overtime income, and auto loan interest, and then an increase in a cap on what's called the state and local tax deduction, which impacts some people in some blue states. So those are some of the big major changes and themes that will probably impact a good number of people.
Do you suspect folks who have been filing their taxes every year for years, do you suspect there may be some things that people are surprised by this year that they maybe have not encountered in years past?
Definitely. I mean, the three big ones are that no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and what a lot of people call no tax on Social Security, but is really that boosted senior deduction. So something to pay attention to for all three of those is the details. The devil's really in the details on them. No tax on tips only applies to tipped wages that are earned in an occupation that's kind of traditionally tipped. You can't just say your income is tips now and deduct them. And it's capped at $25,000 and phases out for higher earners. No tax on overtime can also be a little bit of a misnomer. The deduction only applies to the portion of overtime pay that's a bonus over your regular wages. So that half of time and a half that you're able to deduct. And that's capped at $12,500 for individuals. And then this so-called no tax on Social Security, which is really just a deduction for seniors over 65, could be pretty significant for people. It could allow them to claim an additional deduction of $6,000. That deduction begins to phase out at income over $75,000, so a lower income threshold there. And it starts to fully phase out a little bit higher. But those three big ones are probably what people have heard the most about, and then also some of the most important ones just because they're brand new and you may not have encountered them if you hadn't heard about them last year.
Tax policy, I'm not breaking any news here. Tax policy is complicated. It's complicated every year. There are new changes to it that make it even more complicated every year we move on through the calendar. What advice, if any, do you have for people who want to file? They want to file and get it right, but they hear all of this and they might be a little intimidated and think, boy, it's going to be hard to comply with all of these different elements of the tax code. What advice would you have for people who are thinking that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a lot of changes, but it's always good to work with someone who's a professional, whether it's a practitioner. Sometimes people use online prep services. There's also a lot of resources that the IRS provides, especially for people who make under a certain amount each year. They have a free file program and, previously had direct file program as well. So, definitely utilize the resources that are out there, both at the federal level and the state level, because there are often really important distinctions between those two and your two different returns. So utilize the resources that might, be part of your town or city's website, your state's website, and then also your federal's website.
And Katie, we are short on time. I want to ask you one last question. You cover, and part of your beat covering tax policy is covering House Ways and Means, the Senate Finance Committee, IRS appropriations. You are really in the nitty-gritty of all of this. I'm curious, is there anything that you see as you cover the kind of back end of how all this policy is created that you think might surprise some of our audience who only really interact with the tax code once it comes time to pay their taxes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a running joke in the tax reporter community that everything ties back to tax. There's a tax angle to everything from, horse racing to auto loans to, so many different areas. But, the thing that's really interesting to me this year is the big changes at the IRS. There's been a fun fact here, but not so fun, 7 different acting or confirmed commissioners at the head of the IRS in the year 2025. And they've lost about a quarter of their staff and faced an annual budget cut over the past year. So there's a lot of changes going out at that agency that are also affecting policy on the Hill. So I definitely find that part most interesting and not something people hear about too much because, the IRS definitely gets a bad rap politically and personally for a lot of different reasons.
But you know what? They would hear about it if they're watching 11Alive Plus and they're watching you joining us, Katie Stanton of Tax Analysis. Tax Notes, I should say, a DC-based, nonpartisan, nonprofit newsroom. Katie, we are very grateful for your time, and we hope to have you back here again soon because we still have a little bit of time before we file our taxes. Katie, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to turn now to an ongoing story we have been following now into its 3rd week, the search for Nancy Guthrie, the 84-year-old mother of Today's Show co-anchor Savannah Guthrie, who has now been missing for more than 14 days. An update here, the Pima County Sheriff's Office, that's in Arizona, says the Guthrie family has been cleared as possible suspects in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Again, the Pima County Sheriff's Office says the Guthrie family has been cleared as possible suspects in the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Gabriella Bachara has more.
The focus on finding a suspect involved in 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie's disappearance intensifies as Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos rules out her own family. In a statement, Nanos says in part, to be clear, the Guthrie family, to include all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects in the case. The family has been nothing but cooperative and gracious and are victims in this case. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. This comes after Nanos previously said he didn't plan to rule anyone out.
I wouldn't say anybody's ruled out yet, because what if I rule you out and then later I learn something else?
I asked a retired Phoenix police commander for his insight on this new development.
Why would you do that? Why would you call them out publicly and say, well, we looked at you? No, you don't do that. You just let it ride out.
As the sheriff rules people out, his detectives are also focusing in on the person seen on Nancy's doorbell camera video the night she disappeared, specifically what he was wearing. His backpack is sold exclusively at Walmart, and today the sheriff's department confirms his clothes could have also been purchased at Walmart.
It's outstanding that they've identified a primary store where that has come from, because that gives you an investigative path that you can now follow.
Jeffrey Hines tells me investigators are likely going through Walmart's surveillance video and purchase records.
That is something that gives them something to put their teeth into and just keep digging until they find that one lead that leads them to that suspect.
Another possible lead in the case, DNA found inside Nancy's home, which Nanos told NBC News doesn't belong to Nancy or anyone close to her. It's unclear if investigators have since determined whose DNA it is.
Also want to look for any family ties, any connective relationships that you get a partial hit, you get something that leads you to something else.
And up to $100,000 in reward money is now being offered by the FBI for information that leads to the recovery of Nancy Guthrie or information leading to the conviction of anybody responsible. If you know anything, you are asked to call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Again, that phone number for tips, the FBI tip line, 1-800-225-5324. You see on your screen now, we have our Grace King live outside of the Barrow County Courthouse. You see on the bottom right of your screen a live feed from inside of the courtroom where Colin Gray's trial continues. It is on its second day. The court just coming back from a recess. Grace, we spoke with you a little while earlier this afternoon. Now that court is coming back in session, what do you expect the jury to hear in this afternoon block of day 2 of this trial?
Well, jurors are going to continue to hear from those directly affected by the Appalachia High School shooting. Many of those are students who were either shot or hit with shrapnel the day of the shooting. A lot of them were just 14, 15, 16 at the time of the shooting, but they're just walking through, what happened that day, kind of the physical injuries they have, the physical effects still lingering, and also the mental and emotional toll this shooting has had. A lot of them are still struggling to sleep at night, struggling to go on walks, don't like to be alone or in the dark, or just anything that could possibly trigger memories of that day. So they're just continuing to hear just that emotional firsthand impact that this tragedy has had.
And Grace, I know that you've got to get back into the courtroom momentarily, and we've asked you this before, but I think we should always want to keep this front of mind. For the families, for the folks who call Barrow County home, for parents and students of Appalachia High School, it's been 18 months or so since this shooting, but it is still so raw when you get into that community, and I'm sure inside that courtroom in particular right now.
Of course. And I mean, we talk about the victims all the time, but these victims were, Coach Aspinwall on the football team. Some of these kids, were on the team or just saw him and were used to doing that. Some of these students had Miss Aramy as one of their math teachers. Some of them, Christian was in a lot of their class. Christian Angulo, he's one of the victims. And they were talking about just seeing Christian get shot, seeing him just lying there. And of course, Mason Skirmerhorn as well was in the hallway. And all these kids, they knew these people, they loved these people. So just hearing a lot more of that direct impact of just watching that happen before their eyes. The sheriff yesterday, he said his only regret from the day of the Appalachia High School shooting is they were trying to clear the kids out of the school, get them to safety as soon as possible. And that included walking them through the hallway, unfortunately, where some of those murders had taken place. They saw the bodies, they saw the blood, they saw the horrors, and a lot of that, I mean, we heard from some of these kids, it just sticks with them, was the phrase they used. And it pops up in nightmares. It pops up, you know, when they're alone, when the lights go off because they turned off the lights during lockdown. A lot of that just keeps bubbling up. He said that was his only regret, but he was just trying to get them to safety out of the crime scene as soon as possible. But I mean, it's hard for everyone testifying today. It's hard for those people watching, and even community members going out in the community talking to people. They're saying, you know, are you guys at that trial? We've heard about the trial. We're watching to see what happens. It's just so sad, and we think about it all the time, every day. You still see some of those Appalachia Strong ribbons and banners just letting people know that the community here, it is tight and they are standing together.
Or Grace King outside of Barrow County Superior Court. Grace, thank you. We will check back in with you in just a little bit. And if you're watching us here now, you just saw up on your screen, and I think let's put this back up when we get a moment. This shooting that took place in the early days of the fall semester in 2024 at Appalachia High School claimed the lives of 4 people, 2 adults, 2 students. 9 other people were injured. You see the 4 on your screen whose lives were taken that day in 2024. As we are into day 2 of Colin Gray's trial, Colin Gray has pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors have charged him with 29 counts, including 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. He is the father of the accused shooter in this case. Colin Gray, prosecutors have alleged, bears responsibility as well, they say, for providing his son access to the firearm allegedly used in the shooting. Again, his son and Colin both have pleaded not guilty. The jury is hearing testimony in day 2 of this trial, and it will ultimately be up to them to determine whether Colin Gray is criminally responsible or not. We're going to go to break right now. We'll be right back after this. A civil rights activist and an international advocate, Jesse Jackson, died today at the age of 84. Craig Melvin reports on his decades of service.
Legendary civil rights leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson, dying at the age of 84.
I'm human. I am God's child.
After decades in the public eye, watching a country change as much as he did, Jackson, born in 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina, was a young protege of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his life changing when King was gunned down in Memphis. Jackson, literally, there by his side.
It sounded like a stick of dynamite or a large firecracker. And when we turned, all we could see was police coming. Police were coming from the direction of the shot. Had been lined up along the streets.
It fell to Jesse Jackson and a small group of others to help keep the civil rights movement alive. The Baptist preacher known for his stirring speeches.
Repeat this. I am somebody.
Becoming a voice of the people.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Jackson made Chicago his base of operation, starting what became the Rainbow Push Coalition, urging companies and politicians to improve opportunities for minorities. And he had his own political ambitions, launching a bid for president in 1984. The campaign marking the first time a national party had a major African-American contender. But the campaign was derailed when Jackson admitted using an anti-Semitic slur in a private conversation to describe New York City and Jews who live there.
However innocent and unintended, it was insensitive and wrong.
His apology at a New Hampshire synagogue helped him climb out of a deep political hole. He didn't win the nomination, but came closer after another run in 1988.
My right and my privilege to stand here before you has been won in my lifetime by the blood and the sweat of the innocent.
20 years later, a visibly emotional Jackson witnessing America elect its first black president, Barack Obama, a fellow Chicagoan. Over the years, Jackson used his considerable leverage as a statesman here at home to draw headlines around the world, joining the fight to end apartheid in South Africa, winning freedom for Americans held captive overseas, telling Today in 1999 he was always conscious of Dr. King's legacy.
The dream continues and the struggle continues, but every now and then we see flashes of hope. Inclusion leads to growth, and when there is growth, everybody wins.
In later years, Jackson facing multiple health issues, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2017, hospitalized with COVID in 2021. But he remained involved in politics, leading Get Out the Vote efforts. And in 2024, he was honored at the Democratic National Convention. Applause for a civil rights icon who dedicated his life to keeping hope alive. Craig Melvin, NBC News.
And we are joined now inside the 11Alive Plus Streaming Center by our very own Doug Richards, who has spent many years covering Georgia politics, covering Georgia civil rights activists. And Doug, we know that you have covered the Reverend Jesse Jackson along the way many times. I wonder, to start here, what memories do you have of Jesse Jackson here in Atlanta?
Well, I mean, the funny thing about it was I did not have a personal relationship or particular rapport with him, but every time I saw him in Atlanta, he would always be like, "Hey, good to see you again," like he knew me. And, I mean, possibly because I fit a lot of generic sort of descriptions, but he was always, I mean, I think it was part of his ability to make himself available to people like us. And he was in Atlanta an awful lot, during, not just during Andy Young's administration, but during Maynard Jackson's administrations and all the, just all the way up through the penultimate moment in Atlanta when the Democratic Convention took place here in 1988. I mean, I remember being at Morehouse College one day. I had talked with Young in a building. We had both come outside. There were people arriving for an event. An SUV drives by and the window in the back rolls down, and Jackson sticks his arm out the window and goes, "Andy, Andy."
And you guys, I mean, you were there to see all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool.
I think this is a good time. We spoke with Ambassador Andrew Young just a little bit earlier today. Andy Young delivering these remarks on the passing of Jesse Jackson.
Well, I met Jesse Jackson in 1965, and it was right after a group got beat up on the bridge at Selma. And I was trying to keep people back, because when people get into an emotional state like that, they get what we call freedom high. And they wanted to keep on charging the police. And so we were trying to get everything calmed down. And I'd been up a couple of days, and this great big good-looking kid comes up and says, "You look exhausted." I said, "I am exhausted." And he said, "Look, you need to go get some sleep. I can man this barricade." And I didn't even ask him any more questions. I said, "Help yourself." And I left and went to get a nap. But that's the way Jesse Jackson was. He was always stepping up. If you needed a leader, he'd step into it. And he'd have insight, he'd have a commitment.
Remarks from Ambassador Andrew Young, delivered earlier today, looking back on his decades of civil rights activism alongside Jesse Jackson, joined again by Doug Richards here. Doug, you've covered both the politics of our part of the country, and so often those politics are interwoven with the push for civil rights and civil rights activism in our part of the country, and centered, of course, right here in Atlanta. When you look back on all of that, what stands out to you? How do you make sense of this long, decades-long, some would say centuries-long interweaving of politics and civil rights activism?
Well, I mean, the funny thing is how long it took for example, Selma was in 1965. It took 19 years for Jesse Jackson to run for president after Selma, after the, killing of Dr. King, obviously. And actually, I was working in Nebraska and covered the Iowa caucuses in 1984, and Walter Mondale and John Glenn and Gary Hart were the sort of mainstream Democratic candidates trying to get caucus votes in Iowa. And then all of a sudden, Jesse Jackson decides to weigh in. And I'd never met him before, and started attending his events, and they were remarkable because the other guys were so predictable, and Jesse Jackson was so lit up from his background as a preacher, and it was and he liked to mess around with voters and with journalists, and like he showed up in Des Moines. He goes, "Well, here I am in Des Moines," just to sort of.
And you saw that. I mean, he seemed relatable. He seemed.
Yeah.
Doug, I want to ask you this question. We're a little short on time, but you cover politics. You spend a great deal of your time under the Gold Dome here in the state legislature. I know you were talking to your sources today as the news broke of the passing of Jesse Jackson. What are people at the Capitol saying as they heard this news today?
Well, probably the most heartfelt character there today was Al Williams, who's a state representative from Liberty County, the town of Midway. There was in Liberty County in the 60s a voting rights sort of classroom that got set up called Dorchester. And Jesse Jackson showed up there when Al Williams was a kid, and Dr. King would also show up when Al Williams was a kid. And Williams, talking about it today, was very thankful that Jackson showed up, got interested enough in the civil rights movement to try to pick it up after, of course, Dr. King was gone, run for president, and then eventually, gave Jackson credit for paving the way for Barack Obama to get elected. And, it's an emotional day for a lot of people.
Or Doug Richards bringing us that historic perspective on a life that played out in the public eye across the country, across the world, and right here in Atlanta. Doug, we appreciate it. We're going to go to a quick break right now. We will continue our coverage of the passing of the Reverend Jesse Jackson at 84 years old. When we come back, we will hear from Professor Andra Gillespie from Emory University on more on the life and legacy of Jesse Jackson. We'll be right back. Welcome back in as we continue our coverage of the death of the Reverend Jesse Jackson today at the age of 84 years old. We are now joined by Andra Gillespie, Associate Professor of Political Science and the Director of the James Weldon Johnson Institute at Emory University. Professor Gillespie, we always appreciate your time. Let's start with this. When you heard the news today, what was the first thing that went through your mind?
Well, it certainly was a sad day. Certainly wasn't what I expected to wake up to. Jesse Jackson looms large in the history of African American politics. In my own classes, I happen to be teaching African American politics this semester. We're going to talk about Jesse Jackson both tomorrow and probably next week in my classes. And in another class that I teach on Black political leadership, I devote a whole week to the discussion of Jesse Jackson. You cannot talk about Black politics, you cannot talk about Barack Obama without talking about Jesse Jackson and the way he kind of laid the foundation for Black politics as we know it today.
And Professor, I wonder if you can weigh in on this. The Reverend Jesse Jackson occupied space in, as a reverend, the religious space in our country. He was, of course, a civil rights activist, and he spent a great deal of his time and energy in the elected politics of our nation, blending all three of those sometimes different, sometimes combined facets of our public life. When you look at his life and legacy, how did he interweave those different themes?
Well, I mean, I would actually argue that his biggest role is actually in helping to bridge certain types of generational divides. Within the scholarship on African American literature, there are lots of critiques about how he leveraged his identity as a minister and his forays into electoral politics. And so there are certainly things to critique about in terms of how he used his positionality. But we can also talk about the ways that he served as a transition period from the stalwarts of the mid-20th century civil rights movement because he was younger. He was able to sort of provide sort of a more youthful response to the civil rights establishment that was a counterweight in many instances to the Black Power movement. and Black nationalism. But then he's also incorporating certain elements, of Black nationalism, certainly in his quest to make sure that there was greater Black representation in terms of, being involved in corporate America, whether it's as entry-level and mid-career employees versus those who occupy those suites. And he certainly used the gravitas of it to try to sort of moral voice and to provide moral clarity. There are ways that we see him being involved, but I think it's sometimes some of those ways and the unheralded ways that he's going to have his greatest impact. So I often tell my students and my colleagues, and I agree, you wouldn't have had Barack Obama without Jesse Jackson's 1988 presidential campaign. So that 88 campaign is different from the 84 campaign, which was more heavily focused on African Americans. In 1988, Jesse Jackson was more intentional in terms of being open and being multiracial, and basically trying to make the claim that everything that he was doing was not just to provide uplift for Blacks, but for all people. In his 88 speech at the Democratic National Convention here in Atlanta, he talks about how people came over on different types of boats or ships, but everybody was in the same boat now. But most important about that campaign, he did extremely well in 1988, even overall all of the primary years, and African American support in 88 in ways that he did not in 1980. He was able to use that to gain leverage over Democratic Party politics. So one of the innovations that we attribute to him is the shift in the Democratic Party away from winner-take-all primaries to proportional wins in primaries, where even losers can get a certain proportion of the vote if they meet a threshold. That helps Barack Obama secure the Democratic nomination in 2008. If we were just on a winner-take-all system, we wouldn't have had the 2008 contest that we eventually had. And also the idea of using leverage politics. This was something that one of his campaign advisors, a beloved departed colleague of mine, Ron Walters, who finished his career at the University of Maryland, suggested that he do. You use the performance in the primary to be able to demand concessions from the party in terms of the platform. And he was able to use his position to get an anti-apartheid plank added to the 88 platform to increase Black representation in terms of Democratic Party leadership. So most of us attribute Ron Brown becoming the first Black chair of the DNC to Jesse Jackson's leverage politics in that 88 convention. And then if we think about some of the things that we've seen people do later, Bernie Sanders, in terms of, getting rid of or diminishing the importance of superdelegates after 2016, that leverage model was established by Jesse Jackson. So it's not just Black people who have a debt to Jesse Jackson for sort of the road that he paved before them. It's also many other types of politicians as well.
Professor, we are short on time, but grateful for your perspective. One last question, briefly, but an important one. What impact, what does it mean for our society, for our country, as more and more of the men and women who were there alongside Dr. King are now leaving this earth? The people who have the firsthand knowledge and the firsthand recollections and on-the-ground experience of being there alongside Dr. King, as they pass on, what does that mean for the rest of us who are still here?
That's a very poignant moment, and it's something that I think about often. It means that those of us who are still here, who may have had a chance to interact with some of these people, need to remember to keep their history alive and to tell those stories, and to remind those who come after us of the trail that was blazed ahead of time. So I think those of us who are in positions of leadership and authority and influence need to remind people of the work that came before us, so that people have the right historical context in which to consider events and to consider our current state and where we need to go.
Professor Andra Gillespie, Professor of Political Science and the Director of the James Weldon Johnson Institute at Emory University. Professor, we always appreciate your perspective. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to turn now to a quick break as we remember the life of Reverend Jesse Jackson, who passed away today at the age of 84. We'll be right back. For one Georgia native Olympian, a gold medal was the last and elusive box to check on her many, many trips to the Winter Olympics. Now that quest is over. Our very own Alana Myers-Taylor yesterday earned her gold medal. She nearly retired after the last Olympics, but she decided to return to compete in Italy, and it paid off at 41 years old, becoming a gold medal winner, winning her event in the women's monobob yesterday. She's a mom of two, and she says this Olympiad is for her two boys. Again, Alana Myers-Taylor, at 41 years old, a gold medal winner. She adds that elusive gold medal to her collection of bronze and silver over a number of Olympics she has competed at. Georgia's very own Alana Myers-Taylor, now an Olympic gold medalist, the mom of two, dedicating this Winter Olympics to her two boys. If you can't get excited about that, if you can't feel good about that, then you're not a sports fan, and you're not a fan of feeling good about other fellow Georgians, because that just lights you up. Congratulations to Georgia's very own Alana Myers-Taylor, a gold medalist at the age of 41 years young. Congratulations, Alana. We're going to turn to this now as we continue in the theme of winter sports. Right now, if you're watching, and we hope you are right here on 11Alive, you're watching the Winter Olympics play out in Milan Cortina. Hockey is on the mind as the U.S. men's and women's teams continue to work their way towards the finals. Hockey is taking center stage, and it's becoming a more popular sport right here in the South as well. UGA hockey head coach John Camp will lead a hand-picked U.S. All-Star team at an international junior tournament that is featuring top players from around the world. Our Marcus Greaves spoke to 3 UGA players who were selected.
Definitely the coolest thing I think I've done while playing the game. I've never been to Europe just in general, and so let alone to have the chance to, represent your country, represent the SEC with some of your best buddies is really just one of the coolest things that I think I've ever been part of.
It's an opportunity of a lifetime for Georgia head hockey coach John Camp, who will be the coach of the USA All-Star team who will head over to Europe and compete on a global stage.
To me, it's just a phenomenal opportunity, again, to enjoy the sport we love, but also have camaraderie with people from different countries, different cultures, and be able to just enjoy and experience, what the sport brings.
For the players, the excitement is already building as they are ready to represent their country.
I have no idea what to expect. I'm getting a little jittery over here thinking about it, but I think it's going to be an amazing time. Definitely I've played against a bunch of European guys and stuff like that growing up, but never been to Europe, never played like a full European team or something like that as like a full USA team in a way. So I think that's going to be a really cool thing, doing something that's like bigger than your college, bigger than yourself.
But this team is also going to have a chip on their shoulder when they go to play overseas.
Because I feel like maybe some of the European guys are like, oh, these guys are from the Southeast.
Yeah.
Like, they don't know how to play hockey. They're maybe underestimating us. So.
But the experience these players get is something they will cherish forever.
When I look back 10 to 15 years, I think the most important thing that I'm going to remember is just having the time of my life and having so much fun being able to compete next to some of people who will be lifelong friends of mine, and just being able, whether that's representing your country or representing your school.
In Athens, I'm Marcus Greaves, 11Alive Sports.
More Southern athletes on the world stage representing our state, our part of the country, and a growing hotbed for hockey talent. We're going to be wishing those 3 young men and all of their teammates the best of luck as they embark on their journey to compete internationally under the leadership of UGA head coach John Camp. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back into the 11Alive Plus Streaming Center. I'm Zach Merchant. It is 3:04 on your Tuesday afternoon as we continue to monitor a number of developing stories. First, a jury has now reached its verdict in the cold case of the killing of Tara Baker about 2 hours ago now, just after 1 o'clock. A jury in Clark County delivered its verdict convicting Edric Faust of all 12 of the counts he faced in the case, including murder. His sentencing will take place on Thursday. We'll have more on the jury's verdict coming up in just a little bit. We're also monitoring developments out of the Barrow County Superior Courthouse, where we are now on day 2 of the trial of Colin Gray, the father of the accused Appalachia High School shooter, who himself faces charges in connection with the shooting in a case legal experts have called a first-of-its-kind prosecution in the state of Georgia of the parent of an accused school shooter. We'll have more from inside the courtroom in Barrow County coming up shortly. And we are covering the fallout of the death of Reverend Jesse Jackson, the civil rights advocate whose many decades on the world stage, the national stage, and the Georgia stage are being felt and reflected upon by those who knew him best. We'll have more on his life and legacy coming up shortly. But we begin here, as we're in the beginning of the top of the hour right now, with this. We're going to bring in meteorologist Danielle Moss. And Danielle, it is anniversary week of a remarkable bit of seeing the impact of the weather and how it can impact and really upset and damage lives here in Georgia. If you're from up in northwest Georgia, you remember 1995, some serious flooding, Danielle.
Yes, very serious flooding. And Zach, sometimes I have enough time on my hands to kind of get into the archives. And one of the best things about working here at 11Alive is that we have and you know this, our archive system is amazing. We can pull in all this old footage. And yesterday I sat down and I was like, you know what? Let's talk about this day in history weather-wise. And in 1995, we had a lot of severe flooding, and it wasn't just one event. We're talking about 3 different events that year, not just in February, but one month ahead in January, and also in the summer of that month. And you can see, I mean, all the flooding that happened in northwest Georgia. It was definitely something that was very scary for the people there, and still would be very scary for people today. The difference is, if this were to happen today, our technology is way better. And I don't just mean the way that we forecast things, but even our radars. Back then, we didn't have dual polarization radars, which means that we weren't able to pick up on these signatures that kind of tell us that flash flooding could be something that happens with a storm. Back then, we didn't have all these great tools that we can use to forecast flash flooding and even talk about it ahead of the storm. So there's a lot of things that have changed for the better since then. So we don't really see these really large events here in Georgia as much. But even in northwest Georgia, like in Rome, even in Whitfield County, we saw rock slides and mudslides. People had to be rescued from their homes with boats. And they learned from the event in January to come out a little bit earlier, evacuate people from their homes earlier. And that was really all that they could do other than, kind of give people a heads up. This is one of those situations where the rainfall was really fast. We're talking about 2 inches of rain in less than 12 hours. So it just triggered flash flooding. And what you're seeing on your screen is really the aftermath of that night. I would assume that our photographer who was working at that time went right on out and got this footage. Homes in Marietta and in Smyrna were all flooded by this event. So it was definitely a very large event in Metro Atlanta and going all the way up to northwest Georgia. You can see the gentleman there walking through the water.
Jeez, I mean, that's up to his, easily his mid shin, if
exactly.
not his knee there.
His
that's
kneecaps.
A significant amount of water.
Exactly. And that is just something that, we don't really see often here. I think Hurricane Helene probably brought us that amount of rain once again. And now it's more of a drainage issue, whenever we see flooding of this nature, like in the fall where the leaves clog the drains and things like that. But our technologies for meteorologists and emergency managers too. We have to give them credit. We have all kind of evolved with the time and come up with different ways to make sure that you are safe. Because even though we're meteorologists, they're emergency managers, we all have the same wants and needs. We want people to be safe. We want people to know ahead of time, as much time as we can. And now that our radars are up to date, we can update people in minutes or hours to say, hey, you know what? be careful. This is something that we're watching for.
And part of that is that early warning too, right? Just how often do we say, and y'all say, I mean, days out in advance, hey, heads up, hey, weather alert, weather impact alert, have this on the front of your mind now so you can make good decisions well in advance. Those kinds of early warnings, I mean, I can speak from personal experience at my home, help me to make sure I have what I need to have at home, make sure I'm preparing appropriately. If it's going to be cold, as we went through a couple of weekends of cold weather, do I need to drip my pipes? Do I need to buy some salt to salt the sidewalk? All those little things, it adds up to preventing the alternative that can be a little hairy.
Exactly. And that's why we do those weather impacts, because when we issue a weather impact alert, we know that it's not just normal drizzle, right? We know that it's not just something that's going to be nuisance weather. This is something that's going to be impactful that you should prepare now for, get your family together. Whether it's heat in the summer, we're talking about dangerously high temperatures, humidity making an impact on what it feels like outside, or even really dense fog in the morning. We issue those weather impact alerts so that you all can be safe. And that's another line of defense that we have now that kind of helps people out make rational decisions based on their life.
And, a bit of Georgia history as well before we turn to your forecast, Danielle. Obviously, we were looking back at some archival footage from 1995 here in Metro Atlanta. In 1994, just the year prior, Central Georgia, Macon, Houston County, and other of our Central Georgia counties went through tremendous flooding around the Independence Day holiday. Our sister station, WMAZ, reporting in that storm, they got upwards of 12 inches of rain in a 24-hour period.
Exactly.
So it can, we're not saying this is coming our way, but I mean, that was a historic, I don't want to, once in a century, once in a, I mean, we don't see that, but take the weather seriously. It happens here.
And thinking of that, 93, 94, 95 has some really impactful weather here in Georgia. 93, you had the storm of the century come through with the snow. 94, we had that really heavy rain that you're talking about in Central Georgia, as well as tornadoes. And then here in Metro Atlanta, and even going towards North Georgia and Whitfield County, you have very impactful flooding. So the 90s got crazy.
The 90s got a little busy.
In Georgia.
Here's some good news, Danielle.
Yes.
I am reliably informed that our 7-day forecast right now does not include any of those hazards.
Yes, it does.
Which is excellent.
Exactly. This is a good time for us to talk about it, but you're right. We do not have any hazards on our radar right now. Yes, it could rain later on this week, but right now severe weather is not really at the top of mind. It's something we're going to continue to watch, but we have had beautiful weather. In fact, take a look at this. This is our weather wow moment from today. This is absolutely gorgeous. This was the sunset yesterday even in Dahlonega, and whenever we have these really strong cold fronts to come through, we always get the best sunsets and the best sunrises, those pretty pinks and oranges. This is a live look outside from our DeKalb County camera. It is cloudy outside, but overall our temperatures really aren't being impacted by any of that cloud cover. It is still very warm. In fact, it's 68 degrees right now here in Metro Atlanta. And as we take a look at our temperatures across really Metro Atlanta, it is very warm out there, anywhere from 64 to 68 degrees, almost hitting that 70-degree mark. And while we are enjoying this weather, the pollen count is rather high today.
Starting to get to that time of year where we see the pollen count graphic.
This is the second time this month that we have seen high levels of tree pollen, and that's because it has been so warm and the sun has been out. So if you've been thinking, I'm sneezing a little bit more than usual, you're not wrong. That is exactly what's been happening. We do have some cloud cover that will be increasing overnight tonight, and temperatures will be falling into the 50s, but it's going to be a relatively warm night once again. Temperatures are still on the rise as we head into the next 3 days. In fact, as we head into this weekend, highs could be near 77 degrees, and that's really huge. We're talking about temperatures in February. So yes, right now we're tracking some rain showers, but it is something that we'll have to continue to watch to see if there is a chance for thunderstorms later on this week. As you take a look at our Wednesday planner for tomorrow, it's going to be a very cloudy day, but those temperatures are still going to be into the upper 60s. It's going to be relatively warm. And then we have a chance to maybe tie records still right now. We're still forecasting that on Friday we could be getting close to a record high there, but the trade-off will be those precipitation chances, and they are elevated for this weekend. Now, I'm thinking spotty showers are possible maybe for your Thursday, but we're not looking at any widespread rain until we really get into this weekend. weekend. In fact, here's a look at our long-range track. Heavy rain showers do come through on Friday, and this is the system that we're going to have to watch for Saturday. Maybe a few rumbles of thunder. Right now, the Severe Weather Center, we, as meteorologists here at 11Alive, we're not really sold on severe weather because the models don't have all of the rain in there. Each model run is a little bit different, and each model is different. So we're not quite sold on it, but it's something we'll have to continue to watch. Temperatures, though, looking like we're starting to see them become a little bit more regular in the next 6 to 10 days. So yes, it's been nice to be very warm, but we do need to get back to the 50s. And I know that we all want to enjoy fake spring, but we need to get back into winter so that we don't have to worry about that severe weather. We've been lucky. Last weekend we had some rain come through and it wasn't severe weather, so we don't want to, run out of luck here with the weather here in the next few days.
No, we don't want to run out of luck. But you know what? Every week that we turn that calendar page over and we get closer and closer to being able to say we're just in regular old spring at this point. We're not talking about fake spring, which is where we are right now. But you know what? Some days in the 60s and the 70s.
Yes. I'll take it. I'm not complaining.
We will take it.
Nope.
And certainly grateful to not be going through some of that wicked weather you brought us up to speed on from the 90s, 93, 94, 95. Georgia went through it all.
Yes, they did.
Danielle, we appreciate it, not just the forecast, but the check-in on our history as well. We will see you in just a little bit.
Thanks, Zach.
We're going to turn now to this, a story that we continue to follow inside the courtroom right alongside of you. We're now on day 2 of the trial of Colin Gray, inside of a Barrow County Superior Courthouse, inside of the Barrow County Superior Courthouse. He is inside of one of the Superior Courthouse courtrooms. Colin Gray is the father of Colt Gray, the accused Appalachia High School shooter. Colin Gray also facing charges in connection to that fatal shooting. Both Colin and Colt have pleaded not guilty. Colin is the first of the pair to stand trial. Today is day 2 of his trial, where prosecutors continued to call witnesses and put their testimony before a jury. More than, or roughly, 24 witnesses were called to testify today. This is what some of them had to say today before court wrapped up just about 15 minutes ago for the day.
Yes, seemingly twice.
Twice?
Yes.
Okay. So you've now noticed you've been shot, and I think you said you were screaming?
Yes.
What were you screaming?
I got shot. I'm a kid and I got shot.
What kind of things were you worried about?
My friend, Lorelei, she was only her class was only around the corner, and I was worried that her class had also gotten shot. And I was also worried that I was going to die and how that would affect my parents.
You were listening in to testimony from a young woman, a student at Appalachia High School, who was there in 2024, I should say, in the beginning of the school year in 2024 when that shooting took place. It took the lives of 4 people. 9 others were injured. She was one of those who was injured. She survived her injuries, but just delivering heartbreaking and gut-wrenching testimony and description of that day. Here's more background on where the case stands right now. Colin Gray, again, the father of the accused Appalachia High School shooter. Colin Gray himself faces 29 counts, including 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. He has pleaded not guilty. This is a case of first impression for Georgia courtrooms. Georgia prosecutors, legal experts say, have never before brought this kind of criminal prosecution against a parent of an accused school shooter in our state. The state's theory, and the prosecution's theory of the case in short, is that they allege Colin Gray bears criminal responsibility for providing his son access to the firearm allegedly used in the fatal shooting at Appalachia High School. Colin Gray, again, has pleaded not guilty. The prosecution has been presenting its case now on its second day before a jury inside of that Barrow County Superior Courtroom. It will ultimately be up to the jury to decide whether they agree with the prosecution or the defense in this case. Day 2 is now wrapped up. Court recessed for the day around 3 o'clock. We'll be hearing from our Grace King and a live report coming up in just minutes with the very latest on how things ended inside of that courtroom today as day 2 wrapped up. We've also been following developments inside another courtroom in Metro Atlanta, this time inside of a Clark County Superior Courtroom. This was the cold case of the killing of Tara Baker, the 23-year-old University of Georgia law student killed in 2001. Her case had gone cold. It took decades. Investigators eventually turned up new evidence, in large part thanks to developments in DNA testing technology. The state and the defense wrapped their cases late Friday evening. The judge put the case before the jury. The jury spent all of yesterday and a good part of today deliberating, and just after 1 o'clock, the jury told the judge that they were ready to return to the courtroom and deliver their verdict. When all were seated, including the defendant, Edric Faust, the foreperson of that jury delivered the jury's unanimous verdict, convicting Edric Faust on all 12 of the counts that he faced, including malice murder. Today, again, just after 1 o'clock, Edric Faust convicted in the killing of Tara Baker. Our Molly Oak was inside the courtroom as that verdict was read. I believe we have her now joining us. Molly, if you can hear us, I know it has been a busy day inside of Clark County Superior Court. Can you describe the moments inside that courtroom when that verdict was read?
A busy day and an emotional day, Zach. It was something that this family has been waiting for 25 years. Those closest with the family tell me that it was a huge moment of healing for them. They exhaled an audible sigh of relief. When I was outside the courtroom, I saw Tara Baker's mother in tears, rightfully so. It's been, again, more than 2 decades of waiting for this. A jury of 12 found Edric Faust guilty on all counts, notably multiple counts of felony murder and malice murder as well, Zach.
And Molly, we have a statement from the family we will read in short order. Just briefly, before we let you go here, have you had a chance to hear, and I understand that things are moving quickly outside of the courtroom, but have you had a chance to hear from any of the attorneys attached to the case at this point, either from the defense or the state?
No defense attorneys were escorted out of the courtroom by law enforcement. We did not hear from the state either. We are expected to hear from them in 2 days on Thursday at 3 o'clock. That's when we're expected to hear the sentencing. That's also when we'll hear directly from the family, Zach, when they do their victim impact statements again. And it's expected to be an emotional day. You talk about 25 years of waiting and then 2 weeks of a trial with testimony and arguments, and then almost 24 hours, 25 hours of deliberations. The jury started at 12:30 yesterday, came back in for a couple hours to review some evidence that was presented, and then they tapped out around 8 o'clock last night, started again first thing this morning at 9 a.m., and then at 1:20 they came back out and delivered their verdict.
Armalia Oak delivering this live report. Molly, we know you were inside the courtroom when that happened. We'll continue to check in with you throughout the day. Thank you very much for bringing us that important perspective. We're going to turn now to this statement from Tara Baker's family that we have been referencing here. The Baker family released this statement just moments after the jury rendered its verdict convicting Faust in the murder of Tara Baker. The Baker family saying this today, quote, "Today a jury found Edric Lamont Faust guilty in the murder of our precious daughter and sister, Tara Louise Baker. Tara was 23 years old and just 1 day away from turning 24 when her life was taken. She was a first-year law student at the University of Georgia. She chose to study law because she believed deeply in fairness, accountability, and the responsibility of the legal system to seek truth. Justice was not abstract to her. It was a calling." The family's statement going on to say her life mattered, her pursuit of justice mattered, and both continue to matter. We are grateful for this resolution after more than 25 years of searching for the truth. Again, that's the statement, a large portion of it, of the family of Tara Baker. Tara Baker, the 23-year-old University of Georgia first-year law student killed in 2001. After more than 2 decades, her case finally made it inside of a courtroom before a jury. And today, just a few hours ago, a Clark County jury convicted Edric Faust of all 12 counts he was accused of, including malice murder. The jury convicting Faust of the murder of Tara Baker. We're going to go to a quick break right now. We'll be right back. We turn now to an emerging and troubling trend inside of what researchers are following in the medical industry, an emerging trend of an increasing rate of colorectal cancer in young people. And if this sounds familiar, it's because it has been in the news recently. Actor James Van Der Beek recently passed away on February 11th of this year at the age of 48 following a battle with colon cancer. Chadwick Boseman, the actor, died at the age of 43 following battle with colon cancer. We turn now to Dr. Dennis Choate, colorectal surgeon at City of Hope Cancer Center, Atlanta, who joins us now live. Doctor, we appreciate your time. Are we seeing an increase in the rate of colon cancer and colorectal cancer diagnoses in younger and younger patients?
Well, we certainly are, and it's very troubling to us in the field. It is something that we have noticed over the last decade or so, that we're seeing much younger patients diagnosed with colorectal cancer. And we're trying to determine, what's the cause of this. And there are two real categories of colon cancer occurrence. One is genetic. So certainly if you have a family history, particularly first-degree relatives, mother, father, brother, sister, who have had colon cancer, then you should certainly be screened at age 45, or the guideline there is if you have a relative who is diagnosed, say, at age 50, then you back up 10 years from the age of their diagnosis and begin your screening. So whichever comes first. And then the other category is the sporadic, or the ones we don't really know why it occurs. It's the more common cause of colon cancer versus family history, but also the most puzzling as to why this is happening.
Doctor, you used the word puzzling there. Do doctors and researchers have any sense of why more and more patients are being diagnosed at earlier ages?
Well, there are several working theories there. One is the diet that we have, particularly eating processed foods, um, a lack of activity, which both then can lead to obesity, which is a known risk factor, as well as smoking is also a risk factor, and alcohol consumption, certainly excessively, is a risk factor. So we think all these together are adding to the earlier occurrence. And one that's really mentioned more in the scientific data is post baby boomer generations. There was a lot of antibiotic kind of overusage without proper stewardship back in the 70s and 80s, which we feel changed the microbiome or the makeup of the GI tract, and that has led to sort of a dysbiosis, we call it, to cause earlier polyp formation and then cancer formation.
Doctor, for somebody who may be listening into this conversation, is young, in their 30s or 40s, and rightly is hearing this and maybe is a little worried, what steps can they take right now? What steps should they be taking right now to, as best they can, protect themselves?
Well, again, proper diet, exercise, weight management, and just don't ignore symptoms. Most of the symptoms associated with this would be abdominal pain, any type of bleeding, rectal bleeding, or a change in bowel habits. And certainly don't ignore this or feel that it's too trivial or it can't happen to me at this point in my life, and just let it go. Seek your physician's advice and have the appropriate testing and screening.
And when should people start getting screened? What age should people start getting screened at?
So currently the task force guidelines say age 45, and that's down from age 50 from a few years back. But again, age 45, or if you have symptoms, you're no longer screening. If you have symptoms, it becomes more of a surveillance. But the main thing is talk to your doctor about the symptoms you've noticed and don't ignore it, and seek the appropriate help. And screening guidelines are essentially colonoscopy, which can be done at 45 for average.
And it looks like, Dr. Choate, we may have just lost you there. But yeah, I think we lost Dr. Choate. But we were just about to wrap up. And Dr. Choate, if you're still listening in, if you're able to hear us, thank you for your time and your perspective and important advice for young people, younger and younger adults, to pay attention to this trend. As you heard the doctor say, pay attention if you are feeling symptoms. Talk to your doctor if you think you're feeling symptoms, and follow the guidelines on when it is time to start getting screened. Most importantly, Dr. Choate, again, saying, don't keep this stuff secret. Talk to your doctor so that if something is going on, they can get you pointed in the right direction to start getting treated and fixed up as quickly as possible. Our thanks to Dr. Dennis Choate, colorectal surgeon at City of Hope Cancer Center, Atlanta, for that important conversation and those important tips. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We turn now back once again to day 2 of the trial of Colin Gray, the father of the accused Appalachia High School shooter, his son Colt Gray. Both Colt and Colin facing charges in connection to that shooting. Both have pleaded not guilty. Colin, the father, is the first to stand trial. We're now on day 2 of his trial. Our Grace King has been following at every step of the way, and we join her once again live. Grace, court recessed for the day at about 3 o'clock. Why the recess at this point in the day, and what did the jury hear in the hours leading up to the end of this second day of the trial?
Well, earlier attorneys mentioned some kind of scheduling conflict, so that might have been why they wrapped up early. They were also just kind of flying through some of these witnesses. Earlier, they told us they were going to stop around 15 to 20. We got up to almost 23 witnesses this afternoon, so I think they were just moving at a faster pace. Now, the jurors are coming from Hall County. With traffic, it's about an hour away from here, so it's also taking them a little bit longer, and they're having longer days just because of that commute. They all had to meet at the courthouse, be bussed over here, so that's an hour on the front end of their day. So even though we ended here around 3 o'clock, they're obviously not going to get back till 4, and then, of course, go home, back to their lives, etc. So they are trying to be mindful of the jury's time. A lot of the testimony today was just hard to listen to. The jurors were asking for breaks just because it was so emotionally heavy to hear these kids, really. A lot of them were just 14 or 15 at the time of the shooting, talk about the trauma they experienced, the injuries they've had, and just all the pain and suffering they've had since that shooting.
And Grace, as we get ready for day 3 to begin tomorrow morning in this trial that, as you've informed us, we expect to take a number of weeks, what should we be watching for tomorrow inside the courtroom?
I would expect a lot more testimony from those who were directly affected that day. Of course, the way I look at it is it appears the state is trying to build out and establish the facts of the crime, of what took place. So we know that authorities have accused Colt Gray, the 14-year-old, of opening fire inside J Hall at Appalachia High School. That's where a lot of the math classrooms are. They say he killed 4 people and wounded 9 others, but there's a lot of criminal counts on that indictment that are from other people who were hit by shrapnel or just witnessed it. Some of those victims there, that they're trying to lay out the facts to kind of explain how each person was a victim of child cruelty as a majority of those charges, or reckless conduct. So they're just trying to establish the facts of what happened. Once we hear from all of those victims, we went back to teachers this afternoon, so I don't know if there's a couple more teachers we might hear from. Some of them were with the victims in their final moments. Tomorrow, I would imagine, once we finish kind of outlining the facts of this case, we might hear from the people who were trying to get Colt help. We know that we're going to hear from some of Colt's relatives, his mom, Marcy Gray, who did not have legal custody of him at the time. We also expect to hear from his grandma, Debbie Polhamus. She had also tried to get him mental health help. So we know we're going to hear from some of them. We know that at some point we will hear from Jackson County Sheriff's investigators who had looked at prior school shooting threats the FBI thought might have come from the Gray residence. So we know there's a lot of pieces leading up to the shooting that we will get into at some point, but we're probably going to finish out with all of the establishing facts of this case and hearing directly from those impacted first.
And Grace, as you have rightly mentioned, we've been listening along as well. It has been some gut-wrenching testimony from some very young men and women who were at school inside of Appalachia High School that day when that shooting unfolded. We know that you have been listening along to that testimony along with us, and you have some new witness testimony to share with us, right?
I do. The part we're about to play, it just talks about the impact these kids still have. They were 14 or 15 at the time. They expect to carry a lot of this through their lives, but just take a listen of, a year and a half removed of how much it still impacts them.
Seeing what I saw that day, it just sticks with me. And not being able to trust certain people, or trust people.
I don't like being in front of the doors at school. I don't use the bathroom at school. I always stay with somebody very closely. I say I became kind of more distant from my friends, and I kind of became more depressed.
And those are just 2 of the nearly dozen students we heard from today, just describing some of those long-term impacts. We heard from another kid shortly after who said, he loves marching band. That was his thing at school, and he loved going there and being with people and playing music. But he tried to go back to school in the days after Appalachian High School. He tried for 3 months, he said, and he never once made it through the school day. He's now withdrawn from in-person school because it's just too hard, the emotions, and just too many triggers. And a lot of those kids were just saying they can't get back to normal. They can't do things they loved. They can't be alone. They can't be in the dark. They can't hear sirens because it just brings back the horrors of that day. A lot of them saw their close friends, their classmates, either shot or killed, and it's hard. It's really hard to cope with. Many of them are in counseling and were in counseling and still are in counseling to just try and cope with some of these emotions. But again, they're young, and it's heavy listening to all of them describe it.
Grace, you put it well there. Yeah, it is heavy, it is gut-wrenching, and it is something that lingers with and stays with all those who call that part of our state and really all of Georgia home. Thank you for that update. Thank you for following along with this trial, and we know we're going to see you again very shortly. Our Grace King in Barrow County, thank you very much. And some more information, more context on what is unfolding today inside of that Barrow County courthouse. Again, this is day 2, the trial of Colin Gray, the father of accused Appalachian High School shooter Colt Gray. Both of them have pleaded not guilty. Colin Gray, the first of the pair to stand trial. Colin facing 29 counts, including 2 counts of second-degree murder and 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Again, he's pleaded not guilty. This is a case of first impression inside of a Georgia courtroom, legal experts tell us. Prosecutors have alleged that Colin Gray bears criminal responsibility for providing his son access to the firearm allegedly used in the shooting. This is the first time that a parent of an accused school shooter has faced charges in connection to the shooting here in Georgia. It is what legal experts have called, and it is a bit of a term of art, a novel legal theory. It's untested. This jury in Barrow County will have the task for the first time as a Georgia jury of rendering a verdict on that question of whether the parent of the accused school shooter in this case should also bear some criminal responsibility. Again, both the father and the son have pleaded not guilty. It will ultimately be up to the jury to determine who is presenting the accurate case, the defense or the state. We want to turn now to a live interview. We are joined by Nick Suplina from Everytown for Gun Safety. He's the Senior Vice President of Law and Policy there. Everytown for Gun Safety is a gun safety advocacy group. Nick, we appreciate you joining us. We know that you have been following along with this trial here in Barrow County, here in Georgia. What is your takeaway as you have watched these first few days of the trial?
Well, I think what we're seeing here is a novel case. It's certainly the first of its kind in Georgia. And I think what the prosecutors are raising here is a really important question, which is, when does a parent become responsible for the acts of their minor child? The allegations in this case, what will ultimately be the prosecutor's burden at trial to prove, will be that Mr. Gray took enough actions or showed enough recklessness in his actions that he is actually part of the plan for this school shooting, for this horror that was just described by witnesses today at trial, and the lingering trauma that is felt. And I think, the facts in this case really do start pointing towards the need for greater parental accountability. You've got investigators looking into school shooting threats, a visit at the home. Investigators uncovered what's been described as a shrine to the Parkland shooter in this young man's bedroom, and yet a father putting an AR-15 in his hands. It certainly raises questions, moral and ethical questions for all of us, but in the courthouse, it will be up to the jury to decide whether Mr. Gray should ultimately be found guilty criminally.
And Nick, your organization, Everytown for Gun Safety, is a policy advocacy organization as well. What policy initiatives would your group and would you like to see gain traction here in Georgia?
Yeah, when we're looking at the individual details of this case, you need accountability. you need personal responsibility. But then you take a step back and you say, how do we make sure that we're never talking about this ever again in Georgia? How do you make sure that we're taking the common sense steps to keep our communities safe? And I think, you can use this case as a jumping off point. Well, we'd want to keep those guns locked up and away from children. You'd want to really think about laws that allow intervention where there are warning signs, like there were here. And you'd want to think about the weaponry we're putting into the hands of civilians, and in this case, a minor. And those are three sets of policies that we have, in fact, enacted in states across the country. And in order, they are secure storage laws. States that have secure storage laws or child access prevention laws see a much lower rate of child access. And in fact, what we know is that 3 in 4 guns used in school shootings start in the home of a family or a relative. We have red flag laws passed across the country, which allow for temporary intervention to remove firearms where somebody poses an imminent risk to themselves or others. And of course, we can talk about the platform involved, the AR-15, an assault weapon, which allowed a 14-year-old to inflict this terrific amount of damage. 2 students dead, 2 teachers dead, 9 other wounded, and as you were just discussing, a trauma that will last with this community forever. So lawmakers have a role to play in keeping communities safe, and we hope that they do in Georgia.
Nick, you brought up a couple policy proposals there, safe storage laws for firearms and red flag laws, which for those who are watching and may not be familiar, those are laws designed to allow law enforcement to take firearms away from individuals who, through a number of steps, have been deemed to present imminent or serious threat to do harm with those firearms. Those red flag laws are enacted in some form or another in some other states around the country, not here in Georgia. Nick, whenever we talk about firearms and access to firearms and the legal framework around access to firearms, there are those who will say that the Second Amendment clearly bars any type of regulation by the state of an individual's access to firearms. To people who would raise that point, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say that that's not what the courts have said when interpreting the scope of the Second Amendment, which does, in fact, protect the right to possess a firearm for personal protection. But that does not get in the way of common sense gun laws that seek to reduce the risk of harm to individuals or communities. Something like a secure storage law has been shown over and over again, not just to be effective, but to be constitutional. Red flag laws have withstood every constitutional challenge because why? They're temporary deprivations of firearms after a high standard of due process, and only temporary. And like with all other rights, there are opportunities to avoid drastic harm, which outweigh the individual right. It's always there. It's always going to be protected. But the laws that I'm describing don't encroach upon it.
Nick Suplina, Everytown for Gun Safety, the Senior Vice President of Law and Policy there. Nick, we appreciate your time and your perspective as we know you will continue to follow along this path-breaking trial of Cullen Gray here in Georgia. Nick Suplina, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
We're going to turn now to this. We're going to take a quick break. We will be right back with much more in just 120 seconds. Reverend Jesse Jackson, at the age of 84 years old today, has died. The civil rights advocate, the international activist, passed away today. Craig Melvin shares this look at his many decades of work in the public eye.
Legendary civil rights leader, Reverend Jesse Jackson, dying at the age of 84.
I'm human. I am God's child.
After decades in the public eye, watching a country change as much as he did, Jackson, born in 1941 in Greenville, South Carolina, was a young protege of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., his life changing when King was gunned down in Memphis. Jackson, literally, there by his side.
It sounded like a stick of dynamite or a large firecracker. And when we turned, all we could see was police coming. Police were coming from the direction of the shot. Had been lined up along the streets.
It fell to Jesse Jackson and a small group of others to help keep the civil rights movement alive. The Baptist preacher known for his stirring speeches.
Repeat this. I am somebody.
Becoming a voice of the people.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Jackson made Chicago his base of operation, starting what became the Rainbow Push Coalition, urging companies and politicians to improve opportunities for minorities. And he had his own political ambitions, launching a bid for president in 1984. The campaign marking the first time a national party had a major African-American contender. But the campaign was derailed when Jackson admitted using an anti-Semitic slur in a private conversation to describe New York City and Jews who live there.
However innocent and unintended, it was insensitive and wrong.
His apology at a New Hampshire synagogue helped him climb out of a deep political hole. He didn't win the nomination, but came closer after another run in 1988.
My right and my privilege to stand here before you has been won in my lifetime by the blood and the sweat of the innocent.
20 years later, a visibly emotional Jackson witnessing America elect its first black president, Barack Obama, a fellow Chicagoan. Over the years, Jackson used his considerable leverage as a statesman here at home to draw headlines around the world, joining the fight to end apartheid in South Africa, winning freedom for Americans held captive overseas, telling Today in 1999 he was always conscious of Dr. King's legacy.
The dream continues and the struggle continues, but every now and then we see flashes of hope. Inclusion leads to growth, and when there is growth, everybody wins.
In later years, Jackson facing multiple health issues, diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 2017, hospitalized with COVID in 2021. But he remained involved in politics, leading Get Out the Vote efforts. And in 2024, he was honored at the Democratic National Convention. Applause for a civil rights icon who dedicated his life to keeping hope alive. Craig Melvin, NBC News.
And we are joined now in the 11Alive Plus streaming studio by our very own Doug Richards. Doug, we just saw Craig Melvin provide us that recap of Jesse Jackson's life in the public eye. A big part of that was his time in politics.
Yes.
2 presidential runs. Doug, you cover politics for us, and you were here for the 1988 Democratic National Convention, which coincided with Jesse Jackson's second run for the presidency, and was right here in Atlanta.
It sure was, and it seems like, it doesn't seem quite like yesterday, but it was an interesting convention because 4 years earlier in 1984, Jesse Jackson gave this electrifying speech at the Democratic Convention where the Democrats were doomed to lose to Ronald Reagan running for a second term. But the most exciting thing about the 84 convention was Jackson's riveting speech. So 4 years later, you go now to find another candidate to face George H.W. Bush. And the Democrats have guys like Michael Dukakis and Dick Gephardt, who was a congressman from Missouri, Paul Simon, who was not a singer with Garfunkel. He was an Illinois senator with a bow tie. I mean, one other, there was, Al Gore. So in other words, you had these 4 not so electrifying characters from the conventional Democratic firmament, and then you had Jesse Jackson over here, and a lot of people thought that this would be the year that, based on what he had done the previous 4 years before, and the fact that he was actually able to raise money and actually put a legit campaign together, could maybe win the nomination. History shows he did not, but it was. But it was in the Atlanta, the one time that Atlanta got a national convention, political convention, that was a big storyline, and Jackson's disappointment and disappointment of his supporters, his inability even to be named as the vice president, which I heard that he wanted. He never outright lobbied for it, but Lloyd Benson became the vice president on that ticket. It was it was Jesse Jackson's time to shine and to be brutally disappointed.
It stung, certainly, for the then candidate, Jesse Jackson. His work as a civil rights activist continued for many decades after that second presidential campaign. Doug, you talk about Jesse Jackson delivering a eye-opening, you described electrifying speech 4 years prior in '84 and then '88, once again. Coming back to the DNC, the Democratic National Convention, with a little bit more of a known quantity in politics at that point. Doug, as I listen to that story, and I think some people who are watching may think this as well, there are some echoes to then candidate Barack Obama's arc through the Democratic National Convention, who, as a state senator in 2004, delivered a speech at the DNC that got a lot of people across the country, not just in politics, but just across the country, saying, who is that?
Yeah.
In, of course, Barack Obama's case, he went on to run in 2008 and win the presidency. But when you share those stories, do you think about the parallels there a little bit?
Yeah, you kind of have to. And Obama's, and Obama was more obscure than Jackson was when Obama delivered that speech you're talking about, while he was still a state senator.
And Doug, I hate to cut you off, but we are short on time, and I want to ask you one last important question here. Because you've covered the South for a number of years as well, and Jesse Jackson was one of the folks who, so active in the civil rights movement, knew Dr. King was there. As the years go by, we are losing more and more of those people who were there with Dr. King on the ground in the heart of the movement. What does it mean for us and for our part of the country and for us right here in Atlanta to lose that person-to-person connection to that moment in our history?
I think it's, it's the natural order of things ultimately. But, having Andy Young, who is a considerable and formidable last, I don't know that he is the last. I know some other people with King connections to Dr. King who are still in Atlanta. Young is clearly the foremost guy, and Jackson obviously was as well.
Our Doug Richards, we appreciate that perspective as always. As we get ready to turn to 11Alive News at 4 o'clock, we'll have more live coverage on this topic, the legacy of Jesse Jackson, and outcomes from 2 major court cases. That's coming up in just seconds. We'll see you there.
Hi, thank you so much for streaming with us on 11Alive Plus. I'm Faith Jesse.
And I'm Ron Jones. Right now, folks, we're following major developments in 2 big trials today as we hear directly from students and staff inside Appalachia High School the day of that deadly shooting.
But first, we start with breaking news in the murder trial for Edric Faust. He's the man now found guilty of murdering UGA law student Tara Baker. 11Alive's Molly Oak was in the courthouse when that verdict was read.
Tara Baker's mom was in tears as she exited the courtroom. People close to her say this was a moment of healing for the family.
Malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty.
At 1:20 today, a jury found Edric Faust guilty on all counts in the January 2001 murder of first-year UGA law student Tara Baker. During the trial, prosecutors said DNA evidence showed 48-year-old Faust sexually assaulted, stabbed, and strangled the then 23-year-old Baker before setting her bed on fire. The defense argued just because Faust's DNA was in her body, it doesn't mean Faust is the killer. The jury of 12 decided Faust is guilty. Today, a spokesperson for the Bakers described the moment the family heard the verdict.
The Baker family issued a sigh of relief and tears of a family that's been in waiting for justice for 25 years. For 25 years, the family's gone without knowing who killed Tara Baker, and now they know that answer. So a lot of healing happening today.
As for Faust, he was shaking his head as the verdict was read. His sentencing will be Thursday afternoon. That's also when we're expected to hear from the Baker family. Reporting in Athens, Molly Oak, 11Alive News.
Hey, Molly, thanks a lot for the update. By the way, folks, as we mentioned at the top of the newscast, it was another emotional day in Colin Gray's trial. Now, students who were inside Appalachian High School during the deadly shooting took the stand describing what they saw, what they heard. Colin Gray is the father of the accused gunman, Colt Gray. Prosecutors have charged him with 29 counts, including second-degree murder, and they argued that he shares responsibility because he allegedly gave his son access to that weapon. 11Alive's Marissa Sarback is at the Barrow County Courthouse right now, and I'm sure it was very emotional hearing those young people get on the stand.
It certainly was, Ron. We heard from almost 24 witnesses for the prosecution, and a majority of them were students. They were freshmen in that first class that the shooter entered, Miss Ryan's class. You could absolutely hear how excruciating it was for them to relive that day again today. We also saw police body cam video in court during this trial, and in that video, you can see the moments these kids were evacuated from school and when their families came looking for them. One student testified today he felt responsible for Christian Angulo's death because he thought he left the door open to Miss Ryan's class. Another said he changed schools after the shooting, and many shared with the court the anxiety they are now dealing with in the aftermath. Yet another student showed text messages he sent to his family when he thought he wasn't going to make it. Now, we aren't showing any of their faces as they are minors.
At the very top of this text, it has William. Is that you?
Yes.
Okay. And you sent a text message that says, "There's a school shooting. If I don't make it, I love you all." Is that right? Is that what you sent?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you mean by that text?
I wanted to know that if I did die, that they would know that I love them.
And were you afraid for your life that day?
Yes.
Okay.
It's affected me a lot mentally. I haven't really been able to sleep at night sometimes.
You said you haven't been able to sleep at night?
Yes, ma'am. And I often have really bad thoughts relating to that and other things.
Kind of tell me what you mean by really bad thoughts.
That it's going to happen again, and that this time I'm going to die because I was supposed to the first time.
Because, I'm sorry?
Because I was supposed to the first time.
And what do you mean by you were supposed to the first time?
Because he came in my class, and I feel like none of us should have, had survived.
Today, we also heard testimony from the nurses at surrounding hospitals who helped all of the victims, as well as the GBI and a teacher who was shot in the hallway and was seen crawling back to his classroom to safety. Reporting live outside Barrow County Court, Marissa Sarback, 11Alive News.
Yeah, Marissa, it was really difficult hearing that testimony. I mean, I can't even believe it, especially as an adult to go through that, but a child as well. And the haunting memories as they move forward in this trial. Thanks a lot for the update. By the way, folks, we are streaming the trial from the beginning to the finish right here on 11Alive Plus. So make sure that you tune in for live coverage and highlights from testimony.
Well, Georgia's Attorney General is launching a sweeping investigation into a popular gaming platform used by millions of kids after troubling reports of predators targeting kids online. Chris Carr has opened an investigation into Roblox to determine whether the company is violating state consumer protection laws and putting those young users at risk. Well, this move follows cases where suspects are accused of using the platform's chat features to contact and exploit minors. Carr has now issued a civil demand for documents on safety complaints, moderation, age verification, and parental controls. The state will now review that information to decide whether legal action is warranted here. Carr is also backing broader solutions, including stronger parental safeguards and federal legislation to better protect kids online. And it comes after 11Alive reported on a DeKalb County family that sued Roblox. The parents saying that their son, who was 12 at the time of the incident, was groomed by someone posing as a child on the platform and then coerced him into sending explicit images. Attorneys say that the case is one of nearly 24 similar lawsuits nationwide. They are expected to be reviewed by a federal panel that could combine them into a single class action case. Let's take you outside right now for a look over Midtown. It is a beautiful day out there, feeling like spring temperatures. It's going to be a lot warmer, Ron.
It really is. So let's get to meteorologist Melissa Nord to talk about this. So Melissa, on the way into work, I actually turned on the air conditioning in the car because
I rolled my windows down.
I know, really, and you can roll down the windows too. And it was pretty toasty out there.
You get that greenhouse effect in your car as well if it's sitting outside in the sun. Now, we do have more clouds that are out there today, but this pattern we've seen of the jet stream going to the north and spring-like warmth, it is with us through the rest of the week, but we are going to track more of these clouds moving in here forward. So we've seen mix of sunshine and clouds today, really. At times it's been bright and sunny outside. At times those clouds have been thickening up, especially this afternoon. But despite that, it is 69 degrees now, equally as warm as it was yesterday at this time. Upper 60s all across the metro area, 68 Athens, 70 in Eatonton, 73 in Rome. So it's feeling nice. You can see those clouds streaming in from the west this afternoon, and there's a lot more of them to our west. We'll see those thickening up overnight, and tomorrow will be spent with mostly cloudy skies, but no shortage of mild air for your Wednesday. This evening, we're stepping outside in the 60s right now, falling back to the 50s. Those clouds act like a blanket, so it's not as cold of a start first thing tomorrow morning. But as the temperatures warm up, so will the moisture. We'll talk about weekend rain chances ahead. Danielle?
All right, Melissa, we are having our eye on the traffic this evening. Only one crash that we are continuing to watch right now. This is in DeKalb County. This is on I-20. It is a crash that is headed westbound at Wesley Chapel Road. Not too many cameras in this area, but traffic moving around 6 miles an hour. That's our only major crash. The other crash was earlier, and it has been cleared. This is a look at 7585 South at 14th Street. It is slow and go throughout the connector this evening, but since it is still really a week where a lot of kids are out of school, a lot of parents have opted to stay at home as well. Southbound 13 miles an hour, northbound 26 miles an hour. A quick look inside the Grady curve, and things are relatively easy this evening. Just take your time as you head out and hit the roadways this evening.
All right, Danielle, thank you so much. Well, Reverend Jesse Jackson, the longtime civil rights activist, Baptist minister, and two-time presidential candidate, he died today at the age of 84.
Yes, so 11Alive race, culture, and religion reporter Danielle Nottingham joins us live with reaction from those Atlanta leaders who look back on Jackson's life and legacy. And Danielle, what did you learn today? What did they say?
Well, Ron, we spoke with Ambassador Andrew Young today and current and former Atlanta mayors. And Ambassador Young called Jackson his brother and said he made a tremendous impact on the world, and it broke his heart to witness his declining health.
Keep hope alive. Keep hope alive.
Jesse Jackson was never elected president, but he paved the way for someone who was.
We must have democracy and adequate representation. With a man our share.
The South Carolina native was by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s side during the Selma to Montgomery marches. That's where Ambassador Andrew Young says he first met Jackson in 1965.
This great big good-looking kid comes up and says, "You look exhausted." I said, "I am exhausted." And he said, "Look, you need to go get some sleep. I can man this barricade."
Ambassador Young and Jackson were also with King when he was gunned down in Memphis in 1968.
I dashed to the steps, and there's a picture of Brandon Young and I pointing in this direction because when the bullet came from here, not from there.
After MLK's death, Jackson helped carry the movement forward and entered politics, launching a bid for the 1984 Democratic presidential nomination, becoming the second African American to do so.
That's the way Jesse Jackson was. He was always stepping up. If you needed a leader, he'd step into it. and he'd have insight, he'd have a commitment.
He finished third in that primary and lost his second run for the White House in 1988, but he remained active in politics. Jackson was in Chicago when Barack Obama became the first African-American president in 2008. Former Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed says Jackson will have a lasting impact on his life.
When I would see him and when we would pass, he would whisper in my ear, "The ground is no place for a champion." And so that's where my heart is today.
And Jackson was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2017, but it was later found out that he suffered from a rare neurological condition called PSP. He was also hospitalized with COVID in 2021, but he led several Get Out the Vote efforts until his health declined. Live in the newsroom, Danielle Nottingham, 11Alive News.
Okay, Danielle, thanks a lot. His legacy will be felt for generations to come. Thank you.
Well, a Super Bowl ad for Amazon's Ring doorbell sparking a privacy debate. Is it a helpful tool to find lost pets or a glimpse into AI surveillance? We dig into the concerns ahead.
Also straight ahead, Bologna's iconic medieval towers are leaning. We're going to show you how the city is racing to save them before they crumble.
And here is another shot of the 75-85 split. It is slow and go this evening. We're keeping our eye on the traffic, and we'll bring you another update after this quick break.
U.S. team skier Annika Malasinsky attended the Nordic Combine at the Milan Cortina Olympics on Tuesday to cheer for her younger brother and to protest. Well, she traveled from her training base in Norway to cheer on her brother Nicholas, who finished 13th in his Olympic debut. But for her, that moment, it was bittersweet. You see, the Nordic Combine, one of the oldest Winter Olympic events, remains the only sport on the program without women, even though they compete at the World Cup and the World Championships. Well, at the race, she held signs calling for gender equality in the Games. And now, with the sport's future uncertain, International Olympic Committee officials are set to decide later this year whether Nordic Combine will even remain on the Olympic program for 2030.
Bologna's iconic medieval towers have stood for hundreds of years now, but now some are in danger of collapse. Our very own Shar Preheim takes a closer look at the efforts to save these iconic structures before history comes crashing down.
Hello from Milan, Italy at the 2026 Winter Olympics. You've probably heard about the Leaning Tower of Pisa, but there is a city here in Italy that has some leaning towers of its own, and it's taking an engineering feat to keep them upright. The historic city of Bologna is filled with ancient landscapes, medieval stone skyscrapers built more than 1,000 years ago.
It's the largest medieval city center in Europe.
Today, only 12 still stand, but have become huge tourist attractions because of the way they lean, the tallest 320 feet.
The tower has 900 years and was tilting from the beginning.
Next to it, a 230-foot tower leaning even more. It could fall into its taller neighbor, knocking them both over. That forced the city to close the area and work on a multi-year plan to keep them both upright, stabilizing the structure and using sensors to watch its movements.
We have a lot of sensors inside and outside the tower, so we have to take care of this body. And studying all the movement, because the tower is moving every month with a different movement. With a GPS on the top, we can see we have a problem.
Mayor tells us that tower should be secured by 2028. They're using the same engineering that secured the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Reporting in Milan, Italy, Cheryl Preheim, 11Alive News.
The Bologna Tower's been around for almost 1,000 years, so you got to do what you can to save it, you know?
Exactly. History definitely has to hold together, even if you have to use special technology to do it.
There you go.
That's right.
Enjoying a nice forecast as well. I think we'll keep our temperature bars leaning a bit upwards.
There you go. I like that.
Positive incline. Sorry, running out of it. I still can't get over Bologna.
Bologna.
I want to make a bologna sandwich.
I know, right?
And eat it outside. It'd be a great day for like a picnic in Piedmont Park or something like that. Look at how nice it is. So nice outside, good forecast this evening, right before sunset if you want to take a nice walk, maybe do some pruning in the garden. That's what I did yesterday with my kids. We've got mostly cloudy skies. It is wonderfully mild outside. We're up to 69 in Atlanta, 70 in Eatonton, 73 in Rome, and that warmth is stretching across the entire eastern U.S. So a lot of warmth right now. It's not going to stay that way indefinitely, but as we see these temperatures climbing, the trees are starting to wake up as well. Pollen count today, 107, the second day so far this month. We've reached that high range for tree pollen. As we get into March and then through the first half of April, we will see multiple days with our pollen count above 2,000. In fact, last year, 14,801 was a new record daily pollen count. That's the number of grains of pollen per cubic meter that they measure in Atlanta Allergy and Asthma. So just the beginning of pollen season. In the meantime, though, we'll keep that taste of spring going. Daffodils are up and blooming outside. Temperatures keep staying in the 60s and 70s. By the end of the week, we are going to be tracking some showers and even a few thunderstorms returning to North Georgia. Tomorrow, equally as warm as today, upper 60s, low 70s. But the difference is we have more clouds around. It gets even warmer. We're going for mid 70s Thursday and Friday. That's a solid 15 degrees above average for this time of year and not too far off these records. This record from Thursday, going 76, that forecast high, record 78, that's from the 1890s. Friday, 75. I don't think we make it to the record on Friday with the added chance of rain there. But even though it's warm, we're not done with cold weather altogether. We always say it's a best practice to wait until tax day to plant any of those sensitive blooms. Our average last freeze in the spring is about March 21st. So we have that spring-like warmth for this week. As we fast forward to the end of the weekend, though, it's going away. I'm tracking colder air coming behind our next weather system, and that will send temperatures back below the freezing mark by early next week. In the meantime, though, it will bring in some rain chances. You can see here on forecast track by Thursday. Be a stray shower. It's like a 20% chance of rain. Most of us will not see it. By Friday, we bring in a higher chance, 50% chance of some showers, and even a few thunderstorms in the mix as that boundary is slowly moving over North Georgia to start the weekend. So rain will be moving back in. In the meantime, though, decent weather outside with more clouds in the forecast for tomorrow. Rain amounts through the weekend, generally a ½ inch to 1.5 inches. It'll widely vary depending on where those areas of localized heavy rain set up. All right, so let's go a little closer hour by hour here. We're seeing the clouds increasing this evening, and they'll thicken up while you're asleep tonight. We'll start tomorrow, much milder than today. The clouds act like a blanket. We'll step out right around 50 degrees in the morning. Clouds will be stubborn tomorrow, but despite that, we still feel we'll make it to the upper 60s tomorrow, maybe a spot or two right around 70 degrees. Then you see those mid 70s Thursday, 20% chance of a shower, 40% chance on Friday. It goes up to 60% on Saturday. Cold comes back with a vengeance. 32 Monday morning, 30 on Tuesday. Those are lows for the city. If you're in the suburbs, subtract at least 3 to 5 degrees from that. Weather on Moment today, pretty sunset yesterday evening. Sailor's delight in the sky. Thank you so much, Steve and Delaniga, for sending this photo in. That's our Weather on Moment of the day. If you have a great photo of tonight's sunset, we'd love for you to post that in our 11Alive Weather Impact Facebook group and join the conversation. Danielle?
All right, Melissa, here is a look at the traffic. We do have a new crash that is on the east side. We're also continuing to monitor this crash at I-20, but there's also one at 285 northbound that's causing some delays back past Panthersville. Also, if you're wondering how come 7585 southbound is moving a little bit slower than northbound, it's because there is a brand new crash that just happened. This is at William Street, which is exit 249C. So if you know anyone who's coming southbound down the connector, that is a new crash for you. Drive times there around 16 miles an hour to head south throughout the Grady Curve run.
Okay, got to be a little slow and go right now, but that's par for the course, I guess. Hey, privacy concerns over video cameras and artificial intelligence back in the spotlight. So that follows a Super Bowl ad promoting Amazon's Ring's new search party feature designed to help find those lost pets out there. But some say it's helpful, but others say they worry that it could actually lead to more unwanted surveillance. Michael Yoshida takes a closer look.
It's a Super Bowl ad that had some throwing a flag.
I saw it live, and it was one of those, uh-oh moments.
Ring, the Amazon-owned video door company, promoting its search party feature.
One post of a dog's photo in the Ring app starts outdoor cameras looking for a match. Search Party from Ring uses AI to help families find lost dogs.
It should be heartwarming, but a lot of people are reading something very sinister into it.
Ring hasn't been accused of any wrongdoing, but the ad did spark conversations around unwanted surveillance, AI going through and analyzing videos, and how the technology could potentially be used.
There's absolutely...
Why is a Ring competitor even putting out this satire video, highlighting privacy worries and public distrust?
We could find literally anyone, but we only use this technology to find lost dogs.
A lot of this is people speculating about how the technology could be used in the future by a bad actor, rather than necessarily bad behavior that's happening right now.
Ring's founder says the company prioritizes customer privacy, and the application's use is limited.
Right now, the search party feature is literally just built for dogs. So it's built to look for dogs, to tell you if the dog is in front of your house, and then you have the decision to, contact the owner or not.
But experts say concerns over what comes next shouldn't be dismissed.
These technologies are getting so advanced and so sophisticated, we can't just ignore the implications and the risk.
These same things that are treated as privacy risks for some people are actually kind of a feature.
In Washington, Michael Yoshida.
Coming up here, fifth graders in Walton County are using art and a lot of heart to save lives. How their STEM project is helping dozens of shelter pets find forever homes.
And he calls hockey addictive. Straight ahead, how a local coach is now building a community on ice and growing the women's game right here in Georgia. You're watching 11Alive News at 4 on 11Alive Plus.
Hey, well, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can make the biggest difference. A group of elementary school students is proving that empathy and creativity can actually save lives. Caitlin Ross reports that they're using art and STEM skills to help shelter dogs and cats find their forever homes.
Kids are powerful when they're given a chance to lead with their heart. At Walnut Grove Elementary School in Walton County, a STEM club project has turned crayons, creativity, and compassion into something truly life-changing. These students aren't just drawing pictures, they're telling stories. Each week, fifth graders create adoption profiles for dogs and cats at the Walton County Animal Shelter. The kids write messages from the animal's point of view and draw portraits that show their personalities. The goal is simple: help people fall in love.
Students learn at a young age, because it's fifth grade, that they can use their skills to actually save lives, to actually make a difference in their community, and I think that's so very important.
And it's working. More than 50 pets have already been adopted thanks to this project. Their teacher, Ashley Lockhart, says the lesson goes far beyond science or art. She wants her students to understand empathy, innovation, and the idea that their voices matter. It's proof that when kids are taught compassion early, they don't just imagine a better world, they help build one.
All right, here's another look at 7585. It is slow and go this evening, but traffic around the perimeter looking nice and smooth. We'll have another update at the top of the half hour after the break.
And with things so mild and dry outside, a good evening to spend a little bit of time taking in some of that fresh air. But the dry weather will not last forever. I'm tracking the return of rain and even a few thunderstorms in your weather impact forecast next.
Thank you so much for streaming with us on 11Alive Plus at 4:30. And we continue with that breaking news. A jury convicted a man in the 2001 killing of University of Georgia law student Tara Baker.
Yeah, we're talking about Edric Faust. He was found guilty on all of the counts this afternoon. Tara was just 23 years old when she was found dead and burned in her apartment, stabbed and strangled. Faust was arrested in 2024 after the investigation was reopened. Now, Tara's family says that they're thankful for everyone who fought for justice for Tara. Faust will be sentenced on Thursday.
In the trial of Colin Gray, that is the father of accused school shooter Colt Gray at Appalachian High School, continued today. Students sharing emotional stories about that 2024 shooting at the high school, describing the chaos, injuries, and lasting trauma. Teachers also testified, including one who was shot while protecting students. 4 people, including 2 students and 2 teachers, died that day, several others injured. And Colin Gray is facing charges for allowing his son to access that gun.
The world is now mourning the death of civil rights leader Reverend Jesse Jackson. He died peacefully this morning alongside his family at the age of 84. His death follows a struggle with a rare brain disease. Jackson was a Baptist minister, two-time presidential candidate, and a protege of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His decades-long legacy shaped the civil rights movement, and he never stopped his fight for justice, for social justice. Georgia Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock in a statement says in part that as a kid growing up in public housing, while watching him run for president, Reverend Jesse Jackson gave me a glimpse of what is possible and taught me to say, I am somebody. As an adult, I was proud to call him a friend.
Yeah, a lot of people mourning that loss today. Hey, let's take a look outside right now. We are looking at Midtown, bright skies out there. It's definitely not feeling like February. It's going to be a lot warmer. We're getting an early taste of spring this week. I hope it lasts.
I know, I hope it lasts for a long time. I know we're officially right now, Melissa, in winter, but let me tell you, it feels like spring is already sprung.
Come on.
It does. And I'll tell you, it's not going to last forever, but you can enjoy it while it's here. Savor it. It gets even warmer later this week. Just now at 4:30, we've now hit 70 degrees in Atlanta. So it is wonderfully mild outside all across the metro. A lot of those upper 60s showing up. Lithonia 68 as well as Monroe, 68 in Douglasville, Dallas, Marietta is 69 and 68 right now in Fayetteville. And big picture, even the North Georgia mountains have climbed into the 60s this afternoon. The difference today from what we saw yesterday is the cloud cover. We had bright sunshine, blue skies yesterday. Today the clouds have built on in. These will be a factor for the rest of the week, but it's not going to prevent temperatures from getting even warmer than where we are today. You can see those clouds streaming in through West Georgia into the metro area this afternoon. A lot more where that came from. That's the higher moisture coming in with this spring-like warmth that is here for the rest of the week. So I've actually got us warmer tomorrow than where we are today in a couple spots. We're going to be around 70 degrees again tomorrow afternoon, but watch the forecast track. We're going to see cloud cover greet us tomorrow morning. That starts us off around 50 degrees, and then those clouds are sticking with us as we head through the afternoon. You saw a couple little blips of green on the forecast track there. Much better rain chances come in to kick off the weekend. We'll break down that and look at how that will impact outdoor plans. That's coming up. Danielle?
All right, Melissa, here is a look around the perimeter this evening. I'm monitoring two crashes. The first one is in DeKalb County. This is on I-20. This is headed westbound. It is causing some really big delays. There's also a crash on I-285 northbound after I-20 at exit 46. That's starting to move a little bit better, so I would assume that they have that off to the shoulder. Now, as you take a look into the downtown connector this evening, there is an accident that is on 7585 southbound, and unfortunately, it is definitely making some really big impacts on the top end of the connector. And this accident is really close to the Grady curve. It's right at William Street at exit 249C. They're working to get it cleared. I cannot see it on my traffic cameras, but here's a look at some drive time speeds for you. 75 southbound is moving around 15 miles an hour, and northbound in the same area moving around 17. Ron.
Okay, thanks a lot, Danielle. Tonight we are learning more about a victim pulled from a submerged car in Lake Lanier. Police identified him as 85-year-old Philip Malone. Now, we've learned that his family reported him missing to Roswell police yesterday morning. He was last seen on Sunday visiting a family member in the hospital in Atlanta. His car was spotted yesterday at Tidwell Park by a boater. Police are working to try to figure out how that car ended up in the lake.
Well, Cobb County moving to dismiss a massive lawsuit, filing a new motion aimed at throwing out a $15 million claim against the county. 11Alive investigative reporter Savannah Levins has the latest from today's court hearing.
I'm here outside the Superior Courthouse in Cobb County, where a judge just heard arguments from both sides of a $15 million lawsuit filed by a woman against Cobb County. Terry Ball says that she was an unsuspecting and innocent passenger in a vehicle being driven by a shoplifting suspect when Cobb County police officer Kevin Mayuse pursued that vehicle based on that shoplifting charge. Terry's attorneys say that police officer violated Cobb County police policy by initiating that chase and pit maneuver on a shoplifting suspect. But counsel for the county argued sovereign or qualified immunity, which protects government employees and law enforcement officers from being sued when they're acting within the duties of their job. We'll tell you more about those arguments and what the judge ordered coming up tonight at 5 o'clock.
A man is dead tonight following a shooting involving an officer in Cobb County. Now, investigators tell 11Alive that officers responded to a call on Bradley Avenue in Marietta just after 10:30 last night for a report of a man with a gun. When officers say they got there, they say they confronted him, and they say that it gave him multiple commands for him to drop that weapon, and police said that he did not comply, so they opened fire. The man died at the scene. No officers were hurt. The GBI is now in charge of this investigation.
AARP sounding the alarm for job seekers over the age of 50. Experts stop by 11Alive Plus to share some simple steps to help you land a job.
In case you missed it this morning on 11Alive Plus from our streaming center, new research from AARP shows that 67% of workers over the age of 50 said it would be tough to find a job right now. We dug into that with AARP's Carly Rosowski.
Well, it's a challenging labor market right now with a lot of uncertainty. We also are seeing new technology like AI come into play, and we encourage older workers to embrace this new technology and use it to help in their job search.
If I'm not used to using, say, ChatGPT or something, I'm a novice on it, and I've been told by my grandson I got to check out this new AI thing and it can help me get a job. Where do you recommend I start?
Yeah, start by practicing different prompts, seeing what kind of answers that ChatGPT or other AI platforms might help with. There's also AI different tools you can use, like a career coach that can help you write customized job descriptions and customized cover letters for those different jobs you're applying to.
You can catch interviews like that every morning from 9 to 11 a.m. here on 11Alive Plus from our streaming center. We're also following breaking news as it happens. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9.
And also up next, more warmth ahead this week. Look at these temperatures to our west across the southern plains, close to 80 degrees. We could be within a few degrees of records here in North Georgia at the end of the week. We'll break down that ahead.
And the family cleared, but the search for who's responsible, that is heating up. New clues in the Nancy Guthrie case. What investigators are tracking next after the break.
This is a look at 75-85 South right before the 85-75 split. It's moving a little bit better, but we're continuing to keep our eye on your evening commute. We'll have another update for you right after the break.
Welcome back, everyone. Tonight, we're keeping a very close eye on the disappearance of 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. Her family is now cleared as suspects as investigators zero in on new leads.
That's right. And the Pima County Sheriff says that the Guthrie family not involved here. They're fully cooperating as the search continues. Detectives are focusing on someone seen on Nancy's doorbell camera the night she disappeared, video that we have been showing you. They are tracking a backpack and clothing linked back to a Walmart and testing DNA found in her home that does not match Nancy or her family. So that's a shift from earlier statements when investigators said that no one was cleared. A retired Phoenix police commander breaks down the new developments.
Why would you do that? Why would you call them out publicly and say, well, we looked at you? No, you don't do that. You just let it ride out.
Right now, detectives are connecting the dots here, comparing shopping records with surveillance video to figure out who this person is. Meanwhile, DNA evidence could provide the breakthrough that they need.
We had some sunshine to start the day. Those clouds are now building in. Those will be with us the rest of the week, but it keeps getting warmer. We'll break down how close we could be to records. That's ahead.
Also, hometown coach David Back, he is taking hockey to the next level, from co-ed clinics to an all-women's team. He's building skills, passion, and community on the ice. Hey, when athletes put on their jersey at the Olympics, it really means everything.
It means everything. So tonight, our Practice to Podium series takes us off the big stage and onto the community ice. 11Alive Joe Ripley shows us how coaches and players are now creating lessons and bonds that go beyond the game.
As soon as you give that pass, go.
David Back loves hockey.
It's a drug you're addicted to.
As he skates,
no headshots.
He watches.
Good job.
And whistles. While taking in all the action on the ice.
There's that individual drive of, I want to be better, be a better person, be a better athlete, be a better friend. It's just contagious.
Back is hosting a co-ed community ice hockey clinic, one of the few available in Georgia. This is also his first year as head coach of the Lady Thrashers, an all-female team.
We got ladies who are old enough to definitely consider hanging up their hockey skates. And we got people who are younger in their teens and high school playing hockey.
With professional women's leagues gaining more interest, Back hopes to develop more talent through this training ground or ice.
We're all coming together trying to better ourselves and do something outside and keep ourselves in shape and have fun and bond with other ladies.
The bond between coach and player cuts deeper. For Back, he met his wife Jackie through the game of hockey.
It's really the relationships you get inside the rink, but also offside the ice.
Back will be watching the 2026 Winter Olympics closely, hockey on the biggest stage, hoping the global game fosters even more love for the sport.
You just see so much passion in the sport of hockey with these players competing so hard, whether it's women's hockey, men's hockey. I really look forward to watching USA versus Canada. I hope it gets to be a rematch because it was such a passionate game. The intensity was so great, and you could see it was more than just a game to those players. It meant so much more to them when they put on the jersey.
Whether for community or for country, donning the jersey means adopting a fire for the game played on ice. Incoming, Joe Ripley, 11Alive News.
All right, outside today, warm weather in the air. Also more clouds as well. This is our live camera in Rome. Filtered sunshine. Those clouds have really been thickening up through the afternoon. You can see them building in from the west, pushing into North Georgia this afternoon. And there's a lot more mild and humid air to our west. So it is going to feel like spring the next couple of days, albeit a little more cloudy of a spring setup than a sunny spring setup like we saw yesterday. So a lot of mild air to our west, 69 in Atlanta. You can see all the warmth, 70s right now across the southern plains. And it's that warm air that marches eastward and will send our temperatures within a few degrees of records by Thursday and Friday. So taste of spring it is. Not forever, but for the short term. We'll also be tracking some showers coming in at the end of the week and a couple of rumbles of thunder. Those will eventually bring an end to the warmth that we have over North Georgia for the next couple of days. You can see on forecast track clouds building in. Couple of stray showers coming in by Thursday. That better rain chance closer to this frontal boundary Friday and into Saturday. Between those 2 days combined, we could see some rain totals, a half inch, about an inch and a half at the higher end. It's going to widely vary depending on where we see those pockets of heavier rain setting up. So I want to take you hour by hour in our forecast track. You can see those clouds starting to stream in this evening. Watch how they really cover the area by tomorrow morning, almost acting like a blanket. So tomorrow morning, we'll step outside. Not as cold. You don't need the bigger jackets tomorrow morning. Just a little light sweater, a good idea. Right around the low 50s for low temperatures. Despite the clouds tomorrow, we're still up in the upper 60s in the afternoon. That humidity keeps climbing on Thursday. 20% chance of a shower, but assuming we see some breaks in those clouds and hints of sunshine, a nice southwest wind is going to send us up into the mid 70s on Thursday afternoon. Short sleeve shirts needed there. And then for Friday, rain chances start to come in. These are showing you scattered showers on this forecast track. For first thing Friday morning, we'll see more rain chances building in later Friday and again through the day on Saturday. So a warmer start to the weekend, but not a perfectly dry one. For tomorrow, we'll step out with high temperatures in the upper 60s, right around 70, along with mostly cloudy skies. You see, Thursday, we're up to 76. The record for that day from back in the 1890s, 78 degrees. Friday, 75. I think with the clouds on Friday, those rain chances, we're likely not going to make it to the records there. We have the spring warmth for now. It's not here to stay forever. We always say tax day is when it's safe to plant those outdoor plants. Here's a perfect example of why. Look at this. We're still in February. We're not done with winter yet. We've got 32 on Monday morning and 30 first thing Tuesday morning. Danielle?
All right, Melissa, here is a look at our traffic. We do have two new accidents to tell you about. There is one at Spaghetti Junction. This is at 285 eastbound at exit 33. Also, all the way on the opposite end of 285. This is southbound before Hollywood Parkway. That is a brand new crash that has traffic slow and go all the way back up to Cobb County. So definitely a slow ride in there. We're also continuing to watch the crash into Cobb County. This is on I-20 and also that secondary crash on 285 northbound. Here's a look into the 75-85 split. It looks like things are moving a little bit better throughout the connector this evening, Ron.
All right, thanks a lot, Danielle. You know, Verizon says everything is now back up and running after last month's outage. But here's the catch here, folks. Scammers are now targeting customers with fake text. Laura Painter explains what cyber experts are saying about what you need to know.
The Verizon outage was a glitch.
Verizon suffered a 10-hour outage to cell phone service January 14th, stopping some users from making calls or sending texts for much of the day.
We lost phones, including myself and my family, and it caused chaos.
After the outage was resolved, Verizon told customers they could get $20 off their next bill as an apology for the issue.
And it was published on X, it was being shared around, it was made very broadly available through social media. And so people were waiting for the $20. And what Verizon did, which from a cybersecurity perspective I don't quite agree with, is they sent texts to people.
Former FBI agent, cybersecurity expert, and author Eric O'Neill tells me scammers are now trying to cash in.
What cyber criminals immediately did is piggyback off of what Verizon was doing, sent their own fake malicious links out to anyone that they had on a list of phone numbers.
O'Neill says watch out for text-based scams called smishing attacks. He says cyber criminals have really leaned into these kind of scams because people tend to be more trusting of texts, which can also include direct messages from social media.
Well, how can we protect ourselves?
Well, what I always say is think like a spy hunter. So what you need to do is never click an unsolicited link, even if you're expecting, and that's why this was such a nefarious scam.
O'Neill warns to watch out for texts claiming to be from Verizon and AT&T and T-Mobile as well.
Will those companies be asking them this sort of credit card information logging in? Is that also a red flag if they're being asked this information?
Great question, Laura. No, a legitimate company is not going to ask you for your username and password. They're not going to ask you for your credit card number. They're certainly not going to ask you for your social security number and birth date to verify you are who you are.
O'Neill says there's a lot of information tied to your cell phone account. Scammers can use your social security number to hijack your phone and use your number to attack other people. O'Neill strongly urges everyone to turn on two-factor authentication to make it harder for cybercriminals to trick you into giving up your username and password.
Call their customer support, tell them what happened, tell them to freeze your account and reset your password right away. Because otherwise, that gives the cyber attacker time to change your password, control your account, and then it makes it a lot harder for you to get back in.
Lung cancer remains the leading cause of cancer deaths here in the United States, killing hundreds of people every single day. This is according to the American Lung Association. Even though more people are surviving than ever before, there's still more work to do to reduce the toll of this disease. For people at high risk, early detection through low-dose CT scan can make a life-saving difference. Studies show that screenings can actually reduce the risk of dying from lung cancer by at least 20%. And Dr. Andrea McKee with the American Lung Association says that those eligible for screenings include smokers between the ages of 50 and 80 years old and 20 or with a 20-pack year history. So that's one pack every single day for 20 years or 2 packs a day for 10 years. Now, screening is also recommended for current smokers and for those who quit within the past 15 years.
A lot of physicians aren't completely aware of the new recommendations, and many patients aren't aware of the new recommendations.
By the way, the lack of awareness may be one reason fewer than 1 in 5 eligible adults actually get screened. While CT scans have been used for decades, experts say the ability to effectively detect early-stage lung cancer through screenings is relatively new. So to help raise the awareness, the American Lung Association launched a website called Saved by the Scan, where people can actually take a quick quiz to see if they qualify for any type of screening. Hey, straight ahead, downtown Ackworth, 2 beloved shops refuse to fade away. How a forced move turned into a comeback story powered by community love. Welcome back, everyone. A pair of beloved Cobb County businesses are finally gaining some steam after being forced to move. 11Alive Joe Ripley has more on how the community has rallied to keep these stores from going under.
In downtown Ackworth, some old favorites stand out.
We were a lot of people's first.
Their first taste of the wild side, a taste of some tunes.
There wasn't an option for us to not open this back up. It's been her dream and my dream as well.
Ryan Blankenberger and Lisa Mack.
We're best friends, and everybody thinks that's my mom.
Are actually business partners.
I'm very traditional. Ryan's very creepy and weird, and in a great way.
Yep.
Their stores, Ackworth Antiques and Ackworth Vintage and Vinyl,
We have everything from CDs to VHS.
stood on the brink of death.
Our previous store was, we were there for 12 years, and we lost our lease. They decided they were going to subdivide the building, and it just didn't work for our purposes.
So they moved out and squeezed into a much smaller space, putting in some sweat equity along the way.
This was a big empty warehouse. We've torn down walls, Ryan's rebuilt walls, and we just kind of turned it into what we wanted it to be.
With 20 vendors now hawking their wares, customers are clamoring to keep this antique shop in business.
It was the most heartwarming thing to know that people were fighting for us to open this up.
What could have been left for dead
We're cockroaches, we're not going anywhere. You can't kill us.
now offers new life and light to this community.
The two stores are not quite as big as what we used to have. I feel really good in this space. I think we ultimately, as heartbreaking as it was, I think we were led where we were supposed to be.
Joe Ripley, 11Alive News.
Tonight on 11Alive News at 5, remembering civil rights icon Jesse Jackson. You're going to hear from prominent Atlanta figures about his legacy. That's coming up next.
Hello? Hello? Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, I do. It was just down low.
I put it in the digital Teams, and I also just, with my lab.
I do.
Hi, Monica.
Yep, I got you. Sorry, I was complaining about something else.